Yo, what is up, guys? How is it going? Hope you're having a very, very good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you're coming from. And we're back for another stream, another episode of the Group Up Podcast. And I'm here for the great 2023 debate. It is a new year after all, and I got some new guests. But first, let me introduce the returning guest, my man Custa in the bottom left. Custa, how you doing? Oh, I think...
Viewers. Yeah, you know, I'm just warning them.
Just warning them, letting them know that they're coming for them. Yeah, sorry, it was a little bit muted, but we're good now. We're good now.
All right,
in the bottom right is my man Reinforce. First time on the podcast. Reinforce, what's up?
Yo, I don't know what I'm doing here. I just got this invitation. I haven't been a guest on a podcast in so long because I host our Plat Chat podcast now that I'm like, shit, I need to have opinions and stuff. I'm not prepared for this.
I know, it's different when you're the host because I'm like, oh, I have to hold back so many times. I bet you're the same. I was like, oh, I want to say something, but I need to let my guest speak.
Yeah, you gotta make Custa flourish. So, you know, that's a skill we share now. Get the stuff out of him.
Indeed, indeed. But is this I like this Plat Chat X Group Up crossover episode that we got going. But to round it off, also for his first appearance in the top left is my man Kragie. Kragie, what's up?
Hello, hello. Yeah, this is my first time being on a podcast ever, I think.
Well, we popped the podcast cherry. I'm honored.
Yeah.
The rank 1 DPS out here gracing our presence right now. 5k SR himself, although they fixed that. They did fix the SR cap now, so that is new. And yeah, let's get right into it then. We're going to talk about the whole coming picture of 2023 for Overwatch, PVE, what we expect for PvP, any changes that we might want to see for Overwatch to be a successful game going forwards. But let's start right here, right now. I want to get our guests' general opinions on how they're feeling about Overwatch 2 right now, just so that we have a touching base of what their sentiments are. So I'm going to take it to Kragie first. Kragie, now that they've removed the 5k SR, are you happy? How would you summarize your feelings on Overwatch 2 at the moment?
Well, yeah, in Season 1, I was a very competitive player, and I wanted to get rank 1. But I feel like now, after I've played enormous amount of hours, I've kind of pulled back a little bit as like a casual player. So right now I'm just trying to have fun because I feel like tryharding and ranked over and over again for long periods of time just becomes tilting for me, at least. So yeah, just pulling back now and trying to have fun with the game instead of playing it competitively.
Interesting. That's something I want to unpack. But first we'll head over to Reinforce. Reinforce, what's your general feelings, man?
It's fine, you know. I think Overwatch 2 is good. All right. So it's funny. You wrote this topic list, and I just want to like throw myself into all the topics and just talk about everything at once. But you know, just brief opinion. You know, I think it's fine. Like I think the game is fun. It feels kind of like modern, new. You know, I think there are some glaring issues with like, you know, ranked or whatever. But like overall, I think it's a fun game. I don't really try hard as much anymore either. Like I feel like I kind of did my try-harding where I played the game like 10 hours a day. So just like launching the game and playing it for some time, checking out the battle pass, like trying to get titles, trying to get, you know, new skins. Like I think it's fun. So I think the game is fine, but you know, there's some obvious stuff that needs improvement, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And Custa, how do you feel?
Is that like, so are we talking about ranked as a whole or like the ranked
just
experience
Overwatch
right
2 right now? How do you feel? If you were to summarize your feelings on Overwatch 2.
I think it's okay. I genuinely think it's okay. I think there's some glaring issues at the top end right now for, you know, that, you know, Kragie sort of hit on, of like, it's really burning a lot of people out. But I think overall, I think the game is fun. I think 5v5 is a better direction. You know, I saw it was an apply tweet, you know, 2 months ago where it was like, I miss Overwatch 1, like Overwatch 1. Like there is some great moments of Overwatch 1, but that is like, it's small pockets. And I think the same thing can be said for Overwatch 2. You know, there's been some good metas, like especially at the very beginning with that like Winston stuff. Like there's been some fun stuff, but right now is definitely a downturn.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I'm gonna go a little bit off on one right now because I've been mulling over this myself. Like, how do I feel about Overwatch 2 right now? Because we spoke in the last podcast episode with Flats and Samido and Boger, and you know, most of them were like very optimistic or generally optimistic. Like, yeah, there's problems, but still, you know, I'll give it an 8 out of 10 or a 7.5 out of 10 because, you know, the big picture is this is a lot better than Overwatch 1. And I kind of remember saying that I feel almost like a spoiled kid because, you know, I've been asking for Overwatch 2 and everything Overwatch 2 is for such a long time. I'm sure all of us have been as well, where we're like, let's go free to play. Let's get content. Come on, guys. Like, this is what we want. This is what will help save the game. And then we finally got it. And I'm like a kid at Christmas who, like, you know, who wrote his wish list to Santa. Then the toy came and I'm like, you know what? This toy ain't that, they ain't all that hot. This isn't the shit that I was hoping for, man. The toy's maybe a little bit broken. Let me try to think about why. And I think I've come to the conclusion that, like, I always assumed that the gameplay would come first with Overwatch 2, right? Like, especially when I think all of us got the taste of, like, the alpha, we got the betas, and it felt fun, right? Like, the betas and alphas felt good. They felt better than Overwatch 1. The gameplay felt really good. And I kind of assumed going forwards in Overwatch 2 that when we kick into the big monetization arm, that would continue, that free-to-play would mean that all the money that we're going to get from skins and battle passes will pummel into the gameplay, and we'll get PvE, but on top of that, the PvP will thrive. We'll get new heroes. Hello, Custa's cat. I agree with you as well.
Calm down, bud.
Very well spoken. And I thought it would kind of come to this end, but now, the couple seasons we've had, and again, I must add the asterisks of it's early access, you know, we're just starting. But there's never going to be like this final product, right? There's never going to be like, okay, here it is. This is Overwatch 2 now, because we're a live service game. We're always going to have more content. We're always going to have like another season, something that's broken, something that's not so broken, something that's fixed, whatever. And we're here now, and it just feels like the gameplay hasn't been first. It feels like there's always something going wrong. The balance is always retroactive, right? It's always like, oh, you said Sojourn's broken? Okay, we'll try and fix her. Oh, there's a bug now. Like, we fixed the Hanzo bug, but now we added 2 more bugs, so Kiriko doesn't cleanse anymore, and Junker Queen can axe everything for an infinite, you know, axe cooldown or whatever. And, you know, there's like all these issues that keep cropping up. And it's just starting to feel like my frustration is starting to grow a little bit, and I'm starting to become a little bit increasingly disenchanted, I feel. And I wonder if I want to take it to Kragie now, because Kragie, you said you've kind of just decided, I don't even want to, you know, try hard and sweat anymore. What's the kind of feeling behind that?
Yeah, so the reason for why that is because I still think that Overwatch fundamentally is fun to play. It's fun to run around, it's fun to shoot, it's fun to play different characters with the different abilities. But the lack of change towards the competitive scene and these fast changes like the Hanzo bug, the poor balancing, that doesn't get how you say it, approached quickly enough. They don't nerf them or buff characters fast enough. So it's just you play weeks on weeks on weeks of the same things and the same problem pretty much. Again, it affects me a lot since I play this game every day. Probably wouldn't affect me as much if I played maybe 5 different games and I had a 9 to 5 on the side, so I could only play a few hours a day. So like maybe only like Sunday I'll be playing Overwatch, but yeah, since I play it every day, it becomes very tilting.
Mm-hmm. Reforce, so you kind of also have this mindset, right? You're kind of also a bit just burned out.
Yeah, but I mean, a large part of that is also like, you know, the Overwatch League. It's like we work so hard during the Overwatch League. So I mean, people kind of just got access to Overwatch 2 for quite some time, but essentially, you know, half the year of 2022, we're so ingrained with Overwatch League and everything going on. I was quite surprised actually, because I thought Kragie would like go off on the balance team, because I've just seen the tweets where it's like, what is it? You're the one tweeting, right? That like the only thing scarier than like the skin prices is the balance team or something like that. I'm just like, come on, can't you expand on that? Like,
yeah, I mean, so I think the big issue right now is tanks. I think tank players are not having fun because of tank. DPS players, in my opinion, don't have fun because tanks are just a big buffed up tank character. And I feel like I haven't played a lot of supports, but I feel like support is also very locked right now, because if you lose your tank in a battle, then you most likely lose that fight. So supports are just heal butts pretty much for the tank. So everything is just centered around the tank, and it's just I just feel like it becomes boring that like all the focus is on this one role that only one person can play. That's also why open queue is filled with tanks. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Of course, there's like some balance issues like Sojourn. Like you pretty much need a Sojourn and with a Mercy in order to win high rank games. So it's just like the fact that like you have your hands tied behind your back majority of the games, that you have to play this one character, or if your tank's getting diffed, it's pretty much a GG, is really frustrating. And that's also why I don't really play the game competitively anymore. Like want to try and go for rank 1 because it's very tilting.
Custa is a support player. As Kragie mentioned about supports having to heal, but I mean, do you agree with the sentiment? The tanks are the kind of fundamental problem.
I think that's like, I think what Kragie said of there's either a tank diff or a Sojourn diff, and those really determine the major outcomes. So as a support player, like you think about the 3 things that are like quite viable right now for a support. It's you either go Kiriko and just massively pocket your tank and just Suzu your tank on cooldown so they don't die, so they can win that diff, or you play Mercy so that you can enable your Sojourn so that they can win that diff. Yeah, there's a little bit of Lucio in there where you can sort of like run around, but at the end of the day, you're still just like a speed bot. So it feels like everything that you're doing is to enable someone else, which, you know, we're called supports, but that doesn't always feel good all the time when your job is to just rely on somebody else to be better. So, and, you know, as Craig said, I don't go competitively. I don't try and push rank too hard anymore as well, because of the issue that you go into games where you just don't have impact or you don't have control, and it's just really frustrating to play. So I think the same thing can be said for all roles. And I think it comes down to the fact that there are a couple of sussy characters in the game right now who are just more important than others, you know, like the Sojourn, like the, you know, Orisa or the Roadhog when we were back there, right? Just like, it feels like there are too many people and there's an imbalance of impact on the game right now.
So like too many singular heroes are sticking out in your mind, like the Sojourn, Mercy. Okay, I guess it's a 2, but you know, Sojourn and Mercy. Mercy is like the asterisk attached, and then potentially like the tank is just dominating the sphere too much. Reinforce. You're a tank player. You agree with that? Is that how it's felt for you?
I mean, yeah, I think the best Overwatch metas are still like when damage are like the focal points. And we were lucky in the Overwatch League where we had like some metas where like the damage players were the one who stood out, and like we had some really amazing moments because of that. But like you can just tell it's a bad meta when like the tank players are just like too influential. And maybe it's because Overwatch is just designed like that, like a game where like, you know, like if you have like it's centered too much about like the kit of the hero itself, where like, oh, you know, if you're playing Winston, it's a dive character, and you have to play around that. But like if you have like I don't really play a ton of League of Legends, but like I said this tons like before the game even came out, that like I just wanted tank to be like a supplemental kind of role that was like sort of a brawler, didn't do too much damage, just had like high amounts of health, and like tried to set up your damage players with like, you know, creating space and like stuff like that, but not being too oppressive, not being able to like solo players, and not being able to like, you know, get like 3Ks by itself. So you know, even despite the fact that I'm a tank player, I'd love to find like a middle ground where like you can be a tank player and feel like you're doing something without taking over the game and being suppressive to like the other roles. So yeah.
So a bit more MMO-esque, is that what you're saying?
MOBA-esque. Yeah, I mean in a bit more MOBA-esque, like where you have your carries in like MOBAs and like you build around those, and those become like the most influential characters. And I think in general, like if you have a Widowmaker that's popping off, like they shouldn't just be like single-handedly shut down by like one character or, you know, something like that. So, you know, Sojourn for a long time was actually quite good. I liked that. I liked that meta that it was focused around Sojourn. It just became like too much in the end, like too oppressive in the end. So there's a middle ground there somewhere. But yeah, I do agree the tanks are a bit, you know, too much in the current state.
That's interesting, because, you know, I think the closest we came to experimenting with that was when we had creator patches, and I remember Lemon Kiwi kind of designed tanks in a more, I think she took inspiration from like MOBAs and MMOs, and she said, I'm going to try and just make them more utility, more HP, and tone back the damage. But I would say the large reception of the community was that they didn't like that. They didn't like how that felt, that tanks felt. If I can't kill something as tank, then what's the point, right? So Kragie, like
that was an extreme level though, because like some of those tanks were like straight up unkillable. Like that was the frustrating part of it. Is like the tanks, if you were fighting, and I think this is a core thing that I was talking about on my stream with those tanks, is like when you were playing the character, it didn't feel fun to play with or against, right? And I think that's the big issue with a couple of these heroes right now, like Roadhog. Even if you like playing Roadhog, you like having a Roadhog on your team. He's just unfun to play against. The same thing with Sojin. Like, it's just unfun to play against because it feels like you have little counterplay. So I think that's the thing that they've struggled with. Overall, going back to, some positivity, I think they have done a good job with a couple of these heroes. Like, I like Orisa, even though Orisa's hard meta, I don't feel bad playing against an Orisa. Like, her kit's kind of interesting. She has weaknesses and all that kind of stuff. Where the frustrations really lie is when it feels like I don't have that counterplay and it's just a hero that's not fun to play against. Same thing with like Junkrat, right? Was a Bobe in NA ranked right now is just a menace. Like, he just like one-shots you from across the map with like a grenade mine, and you just like, it's just unfun to play against. And that's what I think Blizzard really needs to snuff out early, because there's a couple of characters who have been doing that since the beginning of time. Like, Roadhog's one of them. They've said a big change is coming for him. I hope they do a good job on that. But like, there's some other ones which is just like, they need to find an answer to it. Mercy, I think, has been under the microscope a lot as well lately with the blue beam, because it feels like no matter what you do to any other character, Mercy comes back with the damage boost that just sort of dominates the game.
I mean, Kragie, is that how you felt as well? Like, what is your better picture? Like, and responding to the idea of like, well, what if tanks were just, more absorbers of damage and there to like enable others, but they weren't such a singular threat themselves?
Yeah, so I've talked about this for a very long time, and I think tanks, like, perfect example of tanks are characters like Reinhardt, in my opinion, is like a perfect tank example. It doesn't feel oppressive to play against. It's not like you're gonna get one shot left and right, but like, you still have that carry potential as Reinhardt if you're really good with him. But whereas like Roadhog, all you pretty much have to do is just stay on point, do a little bit of flanking, and just like one shot left and right. So I think we definitely need a like off tanks. If we look back at Overwatch 1, off tanks are just way too strong right now, in my opinion. And we need to get back to like, yeah, the concept of tanks being tanky and not just buffed up DPS characters. Yeah.
And how do you respond to like that idea of like Mercy as well? Like because obviously someone who plays a lot of damage, like, do you feel like you have to go Sojourn? Like, do you feel like you need a Mercy pocket to fight another guy who has a Mercy pocket? Like, what would your preferred state for DPS be?
Yeah, so I think I've always said that Mercy damage boost is a problem. It's Blizzard can't balance the game around it properly. I mean, we saw it with Ashe, for example, where they had to like do minor tweaks to Ashe when she was one-shotting everybody headshot. And it's just it's hard to balance DPS characters around the Mercy pocket. So, for example, Echo without a Mercy pocket is like a pretty decent pick, but Echo with a Mercy pocket can like pop off a lot, especially also depending on the map. And like, for example, whenever I play on EU, we have a Pharah one trick on the EU servers, Usna, and
I know him.
Yeah, and like with him with a Mercy pocket, it's like really hard to kill him. But Pharah without a Mercy pocket is bad. So it's also very hard for Blizzard to balance characters because they have to think about how Mercy's gonna do with that character. So yeah, I feel like I've always said I feel like they need to get rid of damage boost and compensate her with something else, like maybe a cleanse or something. But yeah, like constant. I feel like damage boost should only be an ultimate. So for example, window or nano boost.
Yeah, so like
I feel like Custa was like right in like what he said about like Roadhog and Junkrat. There are just like a few heroes in the game that like have like an extreme impact on the game and like how it's being played. So, Mercy is a good example because like what Kragie said, like Mercy has such like a extreme impact on like how good Pharah is or like how good Echo is. Whereas like I think you should strive towards having heroes that are just like nicely, balanced, that like don't do too much, but they're one shots all the time. But like
you died for a sec. Go back again. Go over that sentence again.
Oh, I died for a sec. Oh god. But yeah, I just like I think you can just like relax like the balance and like the impact some heroes have. Like you don't need these extreme like one-shot heroes that just like are unfun to play against because like what Custa said, they're so extreme. And like what Kragie said with Mercy, that like it has like an extreme impact on like how the game is being played, whether it's like buffing Echo to like being really good or like buffing Sojourn to be really good. just like the game is fun to play. Like 5 versus 5 is a fun setting. The hero kits are good. Like Custa mentioned with like Orisa, the kit is good. Like it feels fun to play and it doesn't feel bad to play against. So I think you just need to set up like a battleground where you actually have time to utilize these kits and like play your hero without feeling that you're just getting rolled or like something is overpowered within the game. Like ultimately you play Overwatch to like play your hero and feel like you're doing something, like using your abilities. And if you don't have time to use your abilities, if you don't have impact using your abilities, like you're just not going to have a fun time. So I think you should really leverage the fact that 5 versus 5 is good, that the hero kits are good, that it's a fun game to play. But you need to like get rid of these like overpowered one shots or like overpowered duos where that's like Mercy Soldier and Mercy Echo, stuff like that, because that just like ruins the experience you have playing your character and like having fun playing the game.
Okay, well, there's a few different strands there. I want to kind of pick at each of them. So we got the damage boosting. We'll get to that in a sec. Now one shots is another sort of hotly debated idea in Overwatch. Well, you guys have kind of said, well, okay, fuck Junkrat. I don't want that one shot. We've kind of said Sojourn's too strong, but Reinforce, you said, I'm okay with Sojourn. I had fun in that meta. Where's the line? Junkrat is bad, but Sojourn is good, Widow's good, Hanzo's good. Like, where's the line? Like, why is that any better than the other?
Sojourn was definitely oppressive. What I liked about Sojourn was that I think Sojourn is one of my favorite characters in Overwatch because I just love the kit. But I'm not going to sit here and argue that like railgun one shots are good. I'm not going to sit there and say that shit. But I think the kit is really fun, and if you could like tone that back a little bit, like, so yeah, I didn't mean to sit here and say that like I think one shot meta was good for the game, but I think Sojourn the kit of Sojourn, I think is a fun hero kit in the game. I think it's a fun character to play. I love watching like Sojourn streamers, but when it's too extreme, when it's one shots all over the place, then it ruins the game. So that's what I meant with Sojourn is fun.
Yeah, I think for me, with the one-shot argument, it comes down to what is the cost of you playing a one-shot character, right? So Widowmaker can get a lot of one-shots, but she doesn't really do much outside of that. She doesn't get high damage output. Even if she's popping off, she'll generally be the second person on damage under the other DPS, right? And the cost is that she's very isolated, and she can get isolated and she can die quite easily. So yes, there is that success there if you are popping off, but there is a cost there. That is my frustration with, I think, Roadhog, is that he has it on a 6 to 8 second cooldown, and it's almost impossible to punish him, and he can just throw them out. He can miss, 75% of his hooks, but if he hits those important 25% on a backliner, it doesn't matter, right? So that is my frustration. And then you go into where does the line go? Like Hanzo, I go back and forth on being pissed off at Hanzo because you play a game and the Hanzo just doesn't miss, and then you play a game where the enemy Hanzo just can't hit someone to save their lives. So it's there is that inherent cost with Hanzo that it is kind of an RNG character to some degree. So I think there is a line, but it all comes down to that cost balance thing. And the reason I don't like Junkrat is he can one-shot you while also just spamming corridors, doing a ton of damage, doing all that kind of stuff. But I also just hate Junkrat because I think his tire is the worst ultimate in the game.
I mean, Kragie, how do you respond to that as well? Because again, someone might say, well, okay, you say Widowmaker's, yeah, that one shot, that's all she could do, but the counter argument is, well, yeah, but she sits across the map from me, and I can't. There is no counterplay. Especially I think certain maps in Overwatch 2 facilitate that. I think of Colosseo first point when the bot is there and there's a Widowmaker across that entire corridor. What do you do, right? She's just there. You can't peek now because you're gonna blow your head off. So how do you respond to that argument? Is Widowmaker a fair example of a one shot that's fine or not?
Yeah, I agree with Costa about it. I think there should be characters that has one shot abilities. But like he said, I don't think it should be on a 700 HP tank character that can pretty much survive everything right in front of you and have easy one shots. But yeah, Widow is interesting right now. I think meta should be map dependent. I don't think we should have a strict meta for every single map. So I think Widow is a good example right now that you can play Widow on some maps, and she's very strong on some maps. But there are also a lot of other maps where you can't really play Widow and get value with her because there's way too much line of sight and buildings to stand behind.
So it's like that situationalness that for you makes it feel a bit more balanced, where perhaps a Roadhog is just kind of AFK wherever. You just run it on Roadhog, you vape your life away, and then, you know, hook every, you know, 10 hooks and one of them connects and you're good.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of, I feel like you guys are kind of in agreement that the one shots are fine as long as there is a cost benefit, and also that there's a situationalness to them, so that it's not like you can just one shot all the time everywhere. It doesn't matter. Your character survives it all and there's no downside to it. Okay.
I mean, if I'm playing Roadhog, I know that I'm annoying. Like, I know that I'm obnoxious, and I know that, like, people can't really do anything about me, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is just stupid. Like, I'll just play around the corner, try to hit my hook cooldown, and then I'll just go vape if they try to dive me, and chances are they'll commit so many resources and pursue me so much that it'll be, like, a negative for them to chase me in the first place. So it's just a dumb character. Like, it's just dumb.
That's how you know you're not an authentic Roadhog main, because the actual Roadhog mains are like, what do you mean he's an unfun character? Just get good!
Roadhog mains are not real people, man. They're not.
Yeah, Roadhog mains complains about Anna and Zen now, apparently.
Yeah, damn, those characters are overpowered, you know. The one that is a floating death machine in Zenyatta.
I can already see the comments now. Someone's going to be like, SAB, you really need to get, you know, one of these Roadhog streamers on here, because this anti-Roadhog propaganda is such bullshit. Like, you can't keep having this, like, unfiltered anti-Roadhog sentiment, okay? Get the real people on. Okay, so that's, like, the one-shot issue. But now the damage boost issue. Let's get to this now, because you guys are all, again, I think roughly, and speak if correct me if I'm wrong, kind of feel like Mercy is a problem, the damage boost is a potential problem. Maybe damage boost should only be for ultimates. But the counter argument the devs would make and Mercy players would make is, well, how many times are you going to keep changing one of the most popular heroes in the game and keep removing her identity? Like, we kind of shifted res around. Damage, like the yellow beam, blue beam is like the quintessential Mercy thing, right? So like, how can you keep changing this?
Okay, so for me, I think we need to go back to Zenyatta of, like, it's the cost, right? Like, if you want to play a Zenyatta with the Discord that improves everyone's damage, the cost is that you have to play Zenyatta, like, just who's so susceptible to death, all that kind of stuff. You can put out damage, but you need to stay alive. For me, you know, I did it yesterday, actually. I was like, okay, I'm pissed off at Mercy. Let's play Mercy and see if it is, in my opinion, as easy as it seems. Got a game with Hydron on Route 66. Pocketed him, won the game for free. And, like, I'm not even doing, like, I haven't played Mercy in, like, 3 years. Like, I'm not even doing anything crazy. But the GA is too easy to use. You don't have to do anything. You can just stand behind walls. You can res behind walls. You can just enable this one person to be able to pop off to that next level. And that goes back into what I was saying of, like, one person is the focal point of your team, right? So with damage boost, it comes back to it doesn't cost Mercy anything to damage boost someone permanently. And then if they take 50 damage, then you can heal them up, right? So Mercy doesn't really have any risk. In the past, when you played Mercy, her biggest risk was that she can die, right? If you're playing a Mercy against a Winston with the old movement, it was, you know, if the Winston was good, he could follow you pretty well. But right now with Mercy and the damage boost, I think the issue is that she is so survivable. If you have a good Mercy with good movement, she's almost impossible to kill under, like, the current circumstances, unless you one-shot her with, like, a Sojourn or a Roadhog, right? Because she can just constantly move. So I understand that they might want to keep Blue Beam. I think it's a problem. I think it should be changed. I think you can even put it on, like, a defense matrix cooldown, so it can't just be permanently blue beamed. It's like something that you got to channel in, and then you got to choose your moments. But right now, I think Mercy does too much for too little cost. Right now,
how does Mercy, like, not have, like, a resource of some kind?
Yeah,
like, how can you just hold down a button and that's
you don't even
like,
need to hold it down. You can press it once and then just stand behind the wall and, like, stand really far away. Like that's the frustration.
There needs to be some kind of, like, management of your tools and, like, how you use them, when to use them. I don't know if, like, you build up the damage boost, so you get, like, 5 seconds of damage boost if you heal enough people or something like that. Like, the fact that you can just, like, stand and heal and damage boost and then fly away, like, what are we doing here? Like, there's just I get the argument that, like, Mercy is a fan favorite, and yeah, you don't want to change her too much, and, like, you want to retain that player base because, like, they're, you know, a big part of Overwatch. But, like, there needs to be. I realize that Mercy is one of those heroes as well that is, like, supposed to be easier to play than other support heroes, you know, like Moira, for example. But, like, there needs to be some kind of, like, cost to damage boost someone. or some kind of like weakness in the heal, or like something. There needs to be something there, and there isn't something, and so you're just playing like a really passive, strong character that doesn't really require a lot of mechanical work, doesn't require a lot of thinking, to be honest, and you just have a lot of impact. There needs to be some kind of like cost there to the effectiveness of the hero.
I actually really like that idea that you had, Johnny, of like, if you heal someone, then you get the damage boost, because what that would do is that would mean that the person has to be moving around, right? Like the issue right now is that you never have to leave your Sojourn, especially with a Mercy Kiriko. Your Kiriko just protects the tank, and the Mercy just sits there damage boosting the Sojourn. If you make her have to do something else other than just pocket that one person, I think it would alleviate a lot of the frustrations.
Or even like the skill to like try to predict like when do I have to time and use my damage boost, like 5-second timer, 6-second timer, because that can legitimately be hard, and that is something the opponents can like play around. So like you have to communicate with your Sojourn where it's like, hey, I got my damage boost, like do you want it now? And then you unleash like the 6-second damage boost or whatever. Like that's a skill in and of itself, whereas like you don't passively just hold down blue beam.
Well,
so
the
implementing small skills like that.
The two counter arguments to be one, I'm just trying again. I apologize if I'm not correctly speaking on behalf of Mercy mains. I'm trying my best, but the counter arguments would be A. Well, the blue beam is the best reason to pick her, right? So why would you force someone to yellow beam arbitrarily to earn the blue beam when it's like, well, now you're encouraging like a potential heal body kind of style. Also, you're asking them to put a lot more risk now, because if to heal, especially on certain maps, to split your Junkertown A. To heal multiple people across that map, you're gonna have to GA across multiple sightlines in a way that another support wouldn't have to, right? Like you can occupy a safe position on another support, so you're now asking them to take an additional risk. What for? Why?
So
Why make them
that's the cost
don't
of the
take
hero,
Mercy
right?
on point A, Junkertown.
Yeah, I think that's the point we're trying to. That's the thing I'm trying to, like. Every character has those negatives, right? Mercy doesn't have that negative right now because she can always just be sitting back there, right? Like. Then maybe you'd want to play Anna on second point, because then you can heal from a distance while playing back, right? But I think that's the issue with Mercy, is that she just can do that at all times, at any moment. And so it doesn't feel like she's ever having to go out of her comfort of, oh, the weakness of Mercy is that you can't go forward to heal without dying.
Well, and then the other counter argument would be, well, you say all this, but then Mercy's also such a team-dependent hero, which is frustrating for the player. Right, so you're talking all this impact of Mercy, but that impact is always proportional to the impact someone else on your team is providing. So for a Mercy player who's already like, well, you're talking about like nerfing my character. Well, my character already like struggles in a lot of scenarios. Kragie, like, how do you feel about this as a frequent recipient of the blue beam?
Yeah, I mean, so I might have a little bit of a different opinion on this type of stuff, but I feel like we should really take into account high skill, high reward, and low skill, low reward. So I feel like someone like Mercy should probably be meta and should be playable in low rank, but should not be playable in high rank. Yeah, that's just my opinion. I feel like, and I actually really liked one of the reasons for why I really like Sojourn is because she requires a lot of skill. She is overpowered, of course, but in order for me to beat the enemy Sojourn, if it's a good Sojourn, like I really need to buckle up and I need to be good at the game. Like for example, whenever I play against Custa on EU ladder, like I know I really have to sweat and try hard in order to just do the same that he does. Whereas if I were to play Orisa against like another really good tank player, I mean, I just have to recycle my cooldowns right in front of him, and that's pretty much it. So I feel like you should change characters based off of how much skill they require, and I don't feel like low skill characters should be a consistent viable pick in high rank.
I mean, we sorry, Custa, do you have something to say? Or sorry, did anyone want to say something?
No,
you go, Reinforce. I'll chime in after.
Yeah. I just feel like we have evidence in the past, like especially coming off, what was it, like the first stage of Overwatch League in 2018 where Mercy was really strong. Like that was hard evidence that after Mercy got nerfed, that there were so many freaking Mercy players like high on ranked that had like extremely high SR, And when they were forced to switch, they had no idea. Like they couldn't like adjust and play Ana. They couldn't play Sen. And so I think therein lies your evidence that you can reach a really high SR playing Mercy that doesn't really represent like how good you are in your role as a player. Now, maybe that's unfair of me. Like maybe that's like really unfair because like you can be like a good Junkrat player and like get high as Junkrat, but that doesn't mean that you have a great Tracer. Doesn't mean you have a great Sojourn. You can become, I don't know, whatever tank. Doesn't mean you're great at diving, stuff like that. So maybe that's an unfair characterization. But I feel like we've sort of seen this in the past where like when Mercy gets really strong because she is one of the easier heroes to play, like you can get sort of like an inflated SR level. And I feel like that sort of like reflects her kit and how easy it is to use and how like you can get away with that when she's meta.
Well, couldn't it be said that you guys are basically having a very narrow POV of what skill is, which is that like, oh, it must be like
absolutely
shooting skill, right?
I don't agree with that. No,
yeah.
I like. What do you mean, SBB? I want you to elaborate.
So Kragie said, and Lord pray for him for the comments that's coming for you now, Kragie. You said Mercy's a low skill hero. Mm-hmm. I think even Mercy specialists, to be fair, would say, look, she's an accessible hero, but to say it's low skill is to do a disservice to the decision making that takes place, the intricacies of the movement, like how and where. It's not just about I super jumped. So it's also like the timing, where you're going, the backwards, the forwards, the 3-dimensional. We've all faced a Mercy that's really hard to kill, right? Because they just look like they're moving in 8 dimensions now. Like it's just like you thought they were going there, then they broke your ankle. So they would say, well, there's a lot of nuance to it. It's just not FPS like shooting skill that you're calling that the only skill, but there is a skill to it. It's like it's just more of a cerebral skill. So Custa, go ahead. Now you kind of had to take a grievance with that.
That's like being a Tracer player and be like, I have such good movement as Tracer, you would never believe it. But I don't have to shoot though. That's fortunate. But like you do have to shoot as Tracer, right? Like every other character has that movement requirement. Yes, Mercy is on the upper echelon of like you need to have some of the better movements, but as Overwatch, there is more elements than just the movement and positioning and stuff like that. That is a massive skill. We all know great Mercy players, especially with this most recent movement. I don't know how some Mercy players move the way they do these days. It's absolutely phenomenal. But I'm not talking about that as a whole. We're not talking about the top 0.01% of Mercy players, right? They are obviously very skilled. They're at the high end. We're talking about the issue that lower skilled Mercy players are getting disproportional value for doing very little right now. Especially
the baseline is too high.
Yeah, the baseline is too high, especially when you are like in a meta like this. You don't need that high skill movement. You're not getting dove by a Wizard. You're not getting run down by a Tracer. You're just damage boosting your Sojourn while the other Sojourn. The only thing you need to do is stay out of line of sight of the other Sojourn. And that's the frustrating point for a lot of these things. I think we're talking about the high end of Mercy players and how that's frustrating for us. But I think is the blue beam, like if we nerf the blue beam, is that really going to affect the Mercy players in gold that much? Are they getting ridiculous value out of the blue beam down in gold, down in silver, right? And that's where, a lot of the vocal people are of like, they want to keep Mercy the same. I think you could change it in a way that would balance it for the upper end without really affecting the middle to lower end that much as to what they're expecting. You don't have to gut the kit. I'm not asking to gut Mercy's kit. I think she is a staple of Overwatch. I think there are ways to make her kit interesting and balanced, but they just need to keep moving that depending on where they are in the meta. And I think it's fine to have Mercy meta for every now and then. I think a lot of us see the writing on the wall right now of if we don't do anything to Mercy, we're going to see her, I would say 70 to 80% of the time for the next, until they decide to nerf her again, as long as hit scan and no shields exist in the game.
So I also I'd like to comment on the skill part. I think a lot of things goes into what makes a character hard to play. And I think I always say that Tracer and Genji are probably some of the hardest characters to play because you need a lot of aim. You need good decision making when you go in. You need good movement because you're pretty much in the enemy backline, like in the middle of the fight all the time. Whereas as Mercy, aim is like the biggest thing the movement is the biggest thing you need. I mean, I think we all know that the size of Mercy's bullet, you don't really have to aim at people in order to hit them. So she doesn't really require much aim, either, even to do damage. So yeah, that's. So for example, Lucio is also a very, very movement dependent character, but you also need to have good understanding of the game, and like, because you most of the time, well, not most of the time, but you will be in the enemy backline as Lucio. You will be going for those risky boops where you almost have to be their backline, right? So there are support characters that also requires a ton of movement, just like Mercy, but even more skill on top of that, but just isn't being rewarded for it at high rank where the best players are.
Right, so you're saying that like other supports are requiring the same amount of input on the tactical side and the movement side, but they also require the aim side, and they should be rewarded for also having that extra skill that isn't being employed on Mercy. Is that fair? Okay. Okay, well, I don't want to turn it into a great Mercy podcast, especially without a Mercy representative fight her corner. So I want to.
That was fun. Get it off my chest.
Yeah,
nice.
No, good to vent sometimes. Good to vent. So I want to move it on to an interesting tweet that I read of Kragie's earlier today, which he said, I'm starting to miss Geoff Goodman. This was Kragie's tweet, and you mentioned earlier as well, just sort of not enjoying the balance. So I kind of want to take a bigger picture, because obviously this is gonna be an issue from now until forever, right? We're gonna have to balance this game. Particularly, I think Season 3, we don't have a new hero, which means that unless the balance changes things, nothing will change, right? It will stay the same unless there's some potentially smart balance changes. I mean, I would mention the recent balance patch just came in, but it's like, I would say calling it a balance patch is perhaps an overstatement. Calling it a footnote, I would say, is more of an accurate of the 4 little minor changes that we've seen to a little bit to Zarya, Moira, Brig, and Junker Queen buffs. Junker Queen buffs probably the most significant. So what is the core problem for you, Kragie? And then I'll get Reinforcing Custa to respond as well. What is the core problem with you when you say you miss Geoff Goodman, the balancing is wrong? Like, what is the theme here? Hello guys, SVB here. Just want to quickly interrupt this episode of the Group Up Podcast to say that if you've been enjoying this content, then please do consider supporting me directly via Patreon. It really does help, since Patreon only takes about 10% of your money, where YouTube and Twitch take 40 and 50% respectively. So it supports me and allows me to keep making videos no matter how many views they do or don't get. Also, if you are really enjoying this discussion, then why not consider watching some of my other content? First and foremost, my Twitch stream where this podcast is hosted live, and I stream 5 days a week doing a bunch of other things as well. If you're not much of a Twitch viewer, then you can check out the SVB side channel, where all the best bits from the stream go straight to YouTube in highlight format, including VOD reviews, gameplay, and streamer formats such as the Fantasy Overwatch or Rank Gauntlet that you may have seen other streamers participate in. And finally, if you're sick of Overwatch, then you could check out my other channel, The Soak, which is where I do movie and TV breakdowns. And I've done videos on things like Avatar The Last Airbender, Pixar's Up, and anime like Haikyuu. So if any of that sounds up your street, then all the links are in the description. But now, back to the discussion.
Yeah, so the balancing right now, since it's a new game, and they buffed a ton of tank characters without really knowing what the repercussions was going to be. There's way too many, and also with the release of Kiriko and Sojourn and Jungle Queen and Ramatra, there's way too many oppressive things in Overwatch right now, and they are addressing them way too slowly. So I don't like the fact that there are scheduled balance patches. I feel like they need to balance the game when needed as soon as possible, instead of having to wait a month to address something, because that's what they have in their notes, that they're not going to do anything for a month. So especially now, since it's so early, there's bound to be bad balancing, especially with the big changes and the new characters coming out. They just need to pull the trigger way quicker instead of following a schedule.
I don't think it's as much about them. I think I don't mind the schedule as long as it's like they always do hit it in the mid-season at the start of a new season. I think they just need to be way more aggressive with it. You know, like I think they need to be like, Roadhog's a problem right now. No one's having a lot of fun. Let's just reduce his health a little bit and see, you know, because of the cost benefit. I don't know how we've gone this far and Kiriko has not been touched. Like the only thing that changed was the duration of her invulnerability on the Suzu, which isn't the issue, right? The issue isn't how long the immortality lasts. It's the fact that it cleanses and makes them immortal for a short amount of time. So
I just want
that
to quickly interject to say they did nerf Kitsune Rush as well.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that is true. But like, that's not her issue, right? The issue is the invulnerability that also cleanses, so it like negates all the issues, like the counters to a lot of what's happening. And then her direct healing onto one character is just too much right now. Like, you can easily just tone that down and then just see where it lands, right? Like, you could reduce her healing and just see where that lands, and that would open up the gates for other heroes. The other thing that I have an issue with is they're buffing characters willy-nilly, trying to get them to catch up to these other characters. And that's dangerous, because as soon as those characters come down, all of a sudden, is Zaya's energy like having a much lower degeneration rate? Is that going to hurt us in the future, where we just like, someone's going to play Zaya and be like, I have full energy like all the time now, and we're not even going to realize that nerf, that like buff, has been so impactful until later in the game.
Oh, I guess this is what the term we might use for it is power creep, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The dreaded term, where it's like you make a small change to someone in the hopes of making them competitive with someone else. It doesn't work, but then later when another change actually comes in, that character is now way stronger than what they were supposed to be. You didn't even realize it. They crept up on you, and now they're OP in the meta again. I want to go ahead, Reinforce.
I just wanted to comment on the thing Kragie said about the scheduled patch notes. So my fiance actually works for a game company themselves that like update the game, etc. And like the scheduled patches, I think that's just like a result of the fact that they're a massive company, and like it takes time to do these things. Whether that's like organizing meetings where you go like, hey, we have this patch notes thing now. Our engineers, they need to change the code. We need to have, someone needs to write the patch notes. We need to bug test, which, is ironic because there's some bugs in this hotfix where like, it just baffles my mind that like there's the Carnage bugs and stuff like that. But it's a complicated matter. But I think that like, at the end of the day, Blizzard is a massive company, and like you need so many people to work on a patch that like you need to give them room to like figure out the code, to figure out how are we balancing, testing like, maybe some numbers, and like making sure that it at least works. Like that's a commitment. Like that takes a lot of resources. It takes a lot of time. So I don't think it's, I don't think it's something you can like expect for them to just like, oh, here's a 2-day turnaround where it's like a hotfix patch to change the balance because Sojourn was like really overpowered for a week. I think the fact that it is scheduled, I think that's just way more like reasonable for the employees who work on it and like try to change it. I think what's more addressable in that case is what Custa touched on. It's like sometimes the patch notes like doesn't really add up. Like maybe they're seeing something, and I actually like give a lot of credit to the balance team because I know that they have some people working with the data and like they're looking at win rates, they're looking at all kinds of ranks, and they're trying to make the game as a whole really good, not just for like top 500. But I think there are some like unaddressable things where it's like, Custa mentioned Kiriko and buffing some characters that might not need buffs. I think that's like the more relevant issues that like I really, and it's a really shame. It's a real shame that like Roadhog was bugged or whatever for the hotfix, and like they couldn't fix Roadhog because people have been yelling about that for like so long now. So that really sucks. So hopefully like when they figure out those issues, we can get to a point where the actual scheduled updates, they're relevant, they're good, and they address the characters that need addressing. But right now, I feel like they're a bit all over the place in that regard, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Like, as long as the patch notes are impactful, that's all that really matters. Like, as long as they have an impact. Like you said, SVB, the patch notes that we had yesterday, you don't even want to address them because can't even call them patch notes almost. Like that's just like having to wait a month for that to then play another month with those patch notes that doesn't really have an impact. That's an issue in my opinion.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but they haven't commented on like the changes, right, in the last couple of patch notes.
You mean
they did it for like the season
notes?
Sorry,
you mean like the developer notes that come with it?
Yeah, because before in the patch notes, and they did one in November, I guess that was like the season 2 thing or whatever, and they actually like write down like why they did some changes, and like that's really helpful. But in the last couple of updates, I haven't seen that, so I don't know if they did a video or a tweet or something. But like
I don't
that's
think we
just
saw
really
anything.
helpful.
No, I don't think.
The only
just really
communication
helpful
we had was from
context,
Aaron about Roadhog.
Yeah, which Aaron said that for those who missed it, Aaron said we wanted to make a Roadhog change, but that's always been for mid to late January, and some of the changes in this patch were preponed into the earlier patch that they did, and that's why this one is so light. I want to add to one other point to the schedule. The benefit of having scheduled patches is accountability, because I think one danger of not having like a strict schedule of like we're gonna patch at this and this time is what we ended up with Overwatch 1, where we just sat there wondering, waiting, when's the next patch? Whereas if you know, okay, it's going to be once every 4 weeks, then as we have done, we've been like, hey, you missed the date. Where's the patch? Where's the patch? Where's the patch? So you're able to go to the devs and say, you said you would patch then, you didn't patch. Now we have like, it's a fair relationship, I think. They say, we'll patch now. They don't, we can yell at them. If they do it, then we can say, okay, they were on time. And then we can yell at the contents of the patch rather than the timing of the patch. I think for me personally, because I said at the start of the podcast, I'm a little bit losing my faith a little bit. I think part of that comes from what I would perceive to be retroactive and like responsive balancing as opposed to like proactive balancing. So again, I think like if we look at especially some of the heroes, the way they've come out, Kiriko, Sojourn, Junker Queen, all kind of gone hard meta to start with. It feels like they implement stuff and then it turns out to be way stronger or way different than what they imagined it to be. And then we're kind of chasing after that shadow, which is inevitable to happen sometimes. You got to give them that much slack. No developer in the world could perfectly predict. But I think to like maybe how a card game would balance, right? Like a Hearthstone or a Magic or something. Like Hearthstone's probably a better example because Hearthstone can instantly change the numbers, right? Because they're a digital card game. So what they'll do is they'll release, like, I play Battlegrounds, so they'll release like a new set of minions, knowing full well they're hella broken, right? They're like, okay, well, it's a new minion. Let's make this like, this will be the hard meta for like 2 weeks because it's like fun. Everyone wants to play the new stuff, make it broken. But they have internally what they would call the real patch, right? Like they know, okay, we know it's broken. And then after 2 weeks, when everyone has gotten used to it, we're going to put in the real patch so that the game is now more sane and balanced. And usually, at least in my experience, it's been good. It's worked out. Whereas my sort of worry is that with the devs, like they've released a couple heroes and then it turns out that like they didn't really conceive how it would pan out. I think Kiriko, again, it's like, oh, here's the support for the DPS mains out there. Go DPS and kunai. Oh, actually, her healing number is crazy. Her Kitsune Rush is crazy. The Suzu is crazy. That's what everyone's running her for, right? Or like Sojourn again, where it's like the recent Sojourn nerfs. So it's like we've nerfed her to counter this, without necessarily anticipating for the Mercy buff, or again, Roadhog's spike in power when considering the fact that you've added a cleanse to the game, while simultaneously nerfing Ana's cooldowns as well. So like these are the kind of things that would require proactive balancing, right? It's like anticipating, okay guys, we have a really strong handle of our game. When we nerf Ana, that automatically buffs the power of Roadhog. And then when we add a cleanse character, that also buffs the power of the person who's most hurt by anti-nades, which is Roadhog, right? So it's like these kind of things I feel are not being adhered to enough. There's too much reactive balancing, and that causes these problems because we yell at something comes out, we yell about it, and then a month later we get a change, and then we realize something else was borked, or something wasn't addressed, and that's still a problem, and then another month goes by, and they respond to that. Now a new hero has come, a new problem has arisen, and we rinse the cycle over and over where we're just like, we're yelling, and they're like, oh, sorry, here you go, oh, that didn't do it, wait another month. So I don't know if anyone else shares these concerns. Custa, go ahead.
I want to address something that like I think has been bothering me more and more lately, is that I think there's been a lot of people yelling into the void and on Twitter, and I've been in the Discords of feedback to the developers and stuff like that as well. And I understand that we're frustrated and that this shit is annoying, but we got to be careful about just like incessantly shitting on the developers, because first of all, they're people too, and we should be, we need to be respectful in some way. But like, I also think that if we keep complaining in a net negative way, where we're just always just like tearing them down, they're going to stop listening to us, and they will stop, because at the end of the day, I think, especially at the top end, a lot of us aren't considering how they're balancing for the entire player base instead of just us as well. I'm not defending these most recent patch notes. I'm not saying it's perfect. They need to be more aggressive. They need to react better when they're adding something that enables another hero, like the Suzu. They need to be more careful with how that is going to affect other characters and how that's going to dominate the meta. But I think as a whole, as a community, like especially lately, people have been so negative. And I think it not only hurts, our relationship with the developers, it also hurts, we're like, why does everyone hate Overwatch and shit on Overwatch incessantly when internally we're also hating on Overwatch and shitting on it incessantly? It's just going to create this constant cycle. So I think we just need to be more careful with that.
No, and I 100% agree with that sentiment. I think that should just go without saying, although sadly doesn't go without saying on the internet, that developers don't deserve random abuse. Criticism should always be constructive. On the flip side, I would say we're not necessarily unique. I think every game's community is like,
yeah, that's it, right?
They will yell at their devs. They will just like be like, what are you guys doing? Doesn't matter how good the game is balanced, people are going to be upset. And I think also part of the sorry, Ryan, I'll let you chime in a sec. Also, part of game development is listening to our feedback, however we might structure it. Obviously, there are better ways to do it than others, but that is part of it. I want to hear Reinforce's thoughts, but I also want to go over to Kragie because there's something I want to ask him about. But go ahead, Reinforce.
No, I just wanted to say as well, like it's not even about like what Custa said about like they'll stop listening or like they'll stop like discussing. It also like no one wants to like be associated with the negativity that's going on online. So like we ask for like all this more communication. We ask for the blogs, we ask for videos, stuff like that. Like if you're a developer and you're seeing all this feedback, where it's on social media, where it's on YouTube, and like all the comments are just like the shop sucks, you guys are greedy, like. Who wants to be featured on that YouTube video where you talk about like the latest hero? Who wants to talk about like the comics? Who wants to talk about the story? Who wants to, record a video where like you address the balance changes? Like who wants to show their face and like step in front of this shit show of a conversation that's going on online? Whether it's the balance, whether it's the shop, whether it's like this recent like Colosseo. Like if you go to the Overwatch Reddit, holy fuck, man! Like we'll save that for later. But like. It really sucks because I wish there was a more friendly relationship between the player base, the community, and the developers. And like going back to like when they made the map thing, on Twitch, whatever, like brilliant idea. But I think I think if I was a developer for the game, I would genuinely be like terrified that day. Like, oh shit. I have to go do this content piece and like show my face and be the public face of our franchise that publicly is getting so much shit thrown at them. And I think that's like a big kind of like setback that, we don't build like a community where the developers feel fun, feel safe, feel fun being taking part in the content, taking part in the community. Instead, we just like pour shit all over their content all the time. So I think that's a huge downside of like where we're at as a community and like the feedback people are giving. It's really unfortunate because I think it make a big difference. We're like, holy shit, like the Overwatch devs, they're interacting with the community. They're I don't want to say comment on Reddit because that's awful, but like they're interacting with the community and like having a good relationship because that'd be so much more beneficial for us, I feel like. But I don't blame them. Like, why would the devs want to do that?
Yeah, and I 100% agree as well. It is a real shame, and I think that partly Blizzard as a whole has kind of lost its goodwill in over the years, right? Like the idea of shitting on Activision Blizzard is very popular, and also to be fair, the devs did burn some bridges with how Overwatch 1 was handled, so the player base is upset, and they don't have a lot of like grace in that sense. When maybe in many years gone past, if Blizzard would have made a mistake, the community might have been a bit more forgiving and said, hey, look, they hit so often, they're gonna have a few misses. But I think
some of the community, they're just assholes. Like there's a good bunch. Some of the community, they're just 100%. They're just assholes. So
and again, negativity does thrive. In the nature of the internet, we're all content creators. We understand that like a clickbaity like Overwatch sucks is going to get you a lot of views as like a YouTube video. So it's just the nature of the internet. But I want to go back to something.
What's that one YouTube channel that constantly just only has negative videos? Who is it?
Video Game Donkey?
No.
He does do, be fair, but...
there's one user.
I was gonna say someone else, but I don't dare.
Go ahead. Drop it. Give us the clip, bro. Give us the clip.
No, I'm not.
There's someone who's like famous for just like all they do is make YouTube videos about how shit
all like
Overwatch
just the
is.
Death of stuff.
Yeah, like the death of and the thing. I can't remember who it is, but yeah, someone's out there who's
maybe,
like one of the worst at it.
You do a little search, or chat can maybe help as well.
Yeah.
Well, I want to head back to something else Custa said though about like, we don't consider, if you're at the top end, we don't consider like, well, how are they balancing for the rest of the game? And I was actually, I think this is when we spoke, Kragie. Like I was watching your stream, you were watching one of our podcasts back, and you were talking about like, honestly, we shouldn't like it shouldn't matter what the balance is in like beyond like extreme outliers. Ultimately, you balance for the top down, it'll fall into place. Is that a fair representation of your views? Like, would you like to elaborate? Like, how do you feel about what Custa said about keeping in mind the rest of the game's balance?
Yeah, so I think, and I actually looked at this in Overwatch 1. I think low rank players play the game because they want to have fun with how the game feels. They don't care about the meta. So when Double Shield was meta in Overwatch 1, Double Shield was the most played in high rank. But then when I looked at low rank stats, Reinhardt was meta. So I feel like so in my opinion, I feel like you should balance the game around high rank players who care about the balancing, who's gonna use every small advantage that there is to their advantage. So for example, play Soldier in every single game right now, or play Roadhog and Orisa and Mercy, that kind of stuff. But whereas low rank players, they want to have fun with the content that they have. They want to see new heroes. They want to see new maps. They want to play arcade. They just want to have a good time with their friends. And for example, Soldier being 5% better than Tracer is not going to ruin their fun, but that is going to ruin the fun for high rank players if Soldier is going to be 5% better than Tracer every single game for months and months and months. So, because those are the people that most of the time are going to play the same characters over and over again because they want to win. And they're going to use every single advantage that they have to win that game. That's why I feel like meta has slowly started, at least for me, has slowly started to die out, like that competitive spirit. So now I just kind of pick whatever and play whatever. But I'm also way lower ranked now because of that. So yeah.
So to the point, do you feel like they should mostly focus on the top end, or is there, how much consideration do you think they should give to your average player in the metal ranks? You know, like maybe gold plat is like somewhere between gold plat is like average. So like how much consideration in the balance should be given to them versus someone who plays in top 500?
I feel like the majority of the balance changes that top 500 players have would be somewhat in line with low rank players. They're not going to be ruining the game for them, I feel like. I personally feel like, I mean, even someone like Torb is actually quite strong in my opinion, and I think most low rank players would agree with that as well. Roadhog is oppressive in high ranks, and I feel like most low rank players would agree with me on that. Orisa is oppressive. So it's just like, I feel like most of the characters we agree on, but there are those few characters that we don't agree on, such as Sojourn. And because we don't agree on that, we have a massive problem right now, and had a problem because Blizzard tried to dumb down Sojourn, I feel like, in the recent changes, where they made the changes where she got more primary fire damage and got rid of the 2x headshot amplifier. So yeah, at least that's the mindset that I got, that they tried to dumb her down so she's worse in high rank but better in low rank. And but I don't know. I feel like balancing the game around low rank is going to create these issues, but I don't feel like balancing the game around high rank players is necessarily going to create a big issue for low rank players. Yeah,
it makes sense. I was gonna ask as well, bring up the Genji changes, right? Because that was another area where I feel like a lot of the top 500 players were saying this is not necessary, you're gutting the hero, but the sort of justification, whether publicly or not, was that, well, he's kind of oppressive in gold or plat. So like in that kind of scenario, where would you stand?
I feel like 90% of changes should be towards high rank players. And then if you have an oppressive, like for example, in high rank players, maybe they want to nerf or buff maybe Reaper, for example, or I don't know, maybe they want to buff Torb for some reason, I don't know. But yeah, like you would also take low rank into consideration, but I would say like 90%, vast majority of the changes should be towards high rank players.
Fair.
I want to sort of come in with a side note as well. It's something that I got frustrated with over the last couple of months of patches, is that I think Genji and Doomfist had the same issue where they buffed these heroes in the wrong ways of just like increasing the damage or increasing this kind of stuff. And what that does is it makes them ridiculously strong. And then they're like, well, look at how strong this guy is. We got to nerf them again. and then they nerfed them back to where they originally were, and then we're like, okay, see, now everyone's happy again. But it's like, if they just buffed these heroes in the right way, or like gave them something that is a weakness without just increasing numbers or ammo capacity or something like that, I think they would see better results. Like Doomfist is the worst example of this, and I think Get Quaked On and Dante both commented on this when the Doomfist buffs came through. It's like, these are the wrong buffs, because we all know how strong he is going to be now. He's going to overperform, and then he's just going to get nerfed into the ground again. And that's kind of what happened, without them really addressing the issues that Doomfist had of like, why did you remove the slow on his seismic slam? Like, when he was at that beta position, he was in a good spot. You need to look more in that direction. And I think they need to be careful about that, of just like buffing and nerfing the wrong things. Because like, I also think Genji was overperforming. I can't speak for the low ranks, but at high ranks, because Zarya was meta. Like, Genji was so strong because he was such a good brawler. Plus, when he got a Zarya bubble, you just can't kill him, right? So
plus the DPS passive that they then removed.
Yeah, and the DPS passive, right? Like, there's so many things that made Genji strong other than the buffs that they gave Genji.
Mm-hmm. Reinforce, anything to add on that kind of topic?
Yeah, I wanted to add about like balancing for lower ranks or higher ranks. I think when it feels so bad when you say like, oh, you should just balance and cater to the top 500 players, because it's so like it's just sounds so narrow-minded, where it's like, oh, you're just balancing the game around the 1%. But I agree that of course you should look at lower ranks, you should look at like gold, you should look at what diamond, like what's going on there, and like, is there a hero that like stands out? But I feel like where I've landed is, my general philosophy is, if something is overpowered or really strong in top 500 in Grandmaster, chances are that hero is also really strong in the lower ranks, in gold, in silver, and it might show itself in different ways. So just because like you have a Sojourn player who's getting mercy pocketed in top 500 and just like team wipes using overclock or like whatever, like that doesn't have to manifest itself in that kind of way in gold. Like, you don't have gold players just like popping off and getting 5Ks with overclock, but you still have Sojourn players who play a hero that is slightly better than all the other heroes, and they're still able to like get more value out of that hero. So I think that's I think what I've landed is that like, you should balance around the 1%, because the game theory kind of is like, oh, well, that hero is more likely to be better in lower ranks. Whereas like, you say, oh, well, Torbjorn is really strong in silver, so now we need to, nerf that hero, or like something other, like, oh, Reaper's not getting any getting picked at all in like gold, we really need to buff Reaper. Like, I think that's just, I think that's a way more dangerous kind of like mindset and philosophy when it comes to the balance, because I feel like if you adapt like the top 500 trickle down mindset, I feel like you have a higher chance of balancing the game in like the right way without having like repercussions in like other ranks. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, I mean, it follows a philosophy, right? It's like, again, as Kragie was saying, like, the people at the high end will abuse every minor edge, so they will find what's the most broken, and therefore like the input will reflect the power of the hero, right? So like, the more people have to input, the more the power will demonstrate. And so it's hard for it's unlikely that something would be as busted in the metal ranks if even the high-end players can get extract the value out of it.
If I can give a shitty explanation of how I'm thinking about this, it's like, imagine, okay, this is gonna be so dumb.
Here we go.
This is a classic Johnny fucking stupid metaphor, all right? No, I don't know where I'm going with this. All right? Imagine
you gotta just start. You'll find the ending.
I just gotta start, right? Imagine you're like herding sheep, all right? Bear with me, guys. Bear with me. We're at a farm, we're at a ranch, all right? And we're herding sheep. We got like 50 sheep. I don't care, all right? Now imagine sheeps in this case being like heroes, all right? They're overpowered. So they're starting to like stray away from the pack, all right? They're starting to stray away. So the correct way is just like herd that sheep back into the pack, all right? Wait, where the fuck am I?
Is there a wolf involved anywhere? Is there a collie, a border collie?
Rather just like going right into the pack where it's like the gold level or whatever, and just like, fucking shit up in the middle of the pack. No, you want to like skirt the outside, which is like the top 500, and just like make sure that like nothing strays too far away from like where it's supposed to be. So like, do you get what I'm saying? You can't have just like sheep.
Can I try and interpret the street?
The Johnny interpreter, the Johnny whisperer.
Okay. I think what Johnny's saying is you should be balancing for the high end because that's where like the strays are coming from and you got to keep them in. But you need to keep an eye on the middle of the pack as well. And like, you know, they do that with like the unmirrored win rates at all ranks and stuff like that. Obviously, if they balance for the top end while also managing the effect that you're seeing in the mid ranks, like that is important, right? If something becomes massively oppressive in the mid ranks but isn't strong at the top end at all, they still need to address that in the metal ranks and stuff like that, and then find a way for them to balance. But I agree that the top end is generally where you're going to get the most answers because, you know, metal ranks, there is no rhyme, reason, consistency unless you're looking at massive amounts of data and that uncontested win rate.
A good shepherd.
Heard the sheep straying away from the pack.
Yeah, heard the sheep. Yeah, whatever.
Heard the sheep.
Heard the troublemaker sheep. You know, there's a few
the troublemakers. Yeah,
they're gonna start
straying
going,
too far away from balance. Nerf them back into the pack.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I think it was a very helpful and healthy discussion. Let's pivot now to the more PVE side of things, because that is going to be another huge factor of Overwatch. Hopefully, coming 2023. I think they did say 2023 they will start the PVE rollout. It's on the roadmap. They can't lie about that, surely. So we've seen like. I don't even know if it's fair to call them previews of the PvE, right? We saw the the Junkenstein event. We've now got like this battle for Olympus, which, you know, some people have said, well, maybe this is kind of like what a talent tree would look like with some of these wacky buffs to the characters. My first question is just how much have you enjoyed what we've gotten so far? I'll go to Kragie first. Have you played any of the sort of the fringe modes that have come out, the battle for Olympus, the Junkenstein? Are you enjoying them?
Well, I did play this morning, Battle of Olympus, and it was filled with tank characters, so I left immediately and played ranked.
So it just wasn't. It didn't feel balanced, right? Basically, is that what it was?
No. I mean, it's nice and unique, and like you said, it does give a little bit of an insight of what's to come with the talent tree. But yeah, it just feels like regular deathmatch with a few changes.
And did you play the Junken Queen event?
Yeah, that was fun. I like that.
I can tell you're dripping with love and enthusiasm for that mode.
Yeah.
Custa, how about you? You were saying as well you didn't seem to enjoy the Battle for Olympus too much.
Yeah, so I'll hit Junkenstein first. I thought Junkenstein was a good look at PvE, and I think it was like, obviously, once you can start getting more depth into it, we start getting storylines, you start having talent trees, I think it'll elevate that a lot, but I think it was the best PvE event we've ever had, so it was definitely a step up in some way. This Battle for Olympus, I am exactly with Kragie. I played the first one, realized that there were these overpowered abilities, looked up the overpowered abilities. My second game, I quit halfway through, because like, the problem with it, it's a cool idea where your ultimates become like super powered and stuff like that. But first of all, it just feels like if you don't have your ultimate, you just lose whatever battle you're in. And then secondly, all of them are tanks. Like if it was more DPS and supports, it would be more fun. But like there is now an excuse to play Roadhog in a death match. And now he shoots fucking boulders out of his gun and is unkillable and all that kind of stuff. So I think the idea was good. I think the execution, obviously, the person who put the mode together also probably didn't choose the skins, right? And this is a showing the skins kind of event. So it kind of sucks that that's sort of how it went. And I think this was a prime example of people who are like, oh, I can't wait for the PvE and talent trees to come out, and then we can have some fun PvP modes. This just reminded you that PvP modes would not be fun if you had talent trees, because things are just stupid. They're supposed to be ridiculous and fun against NPCs and used in collaboration and not against other people. Because like I played Ramatra and I was like, I finally got my ultimate in this mode. He's supposed to be overpowered. I pop it. The Reinhardt just instantly shatters me with his ultimate and then just pins you, which instantly kills you if he's in his god mode, and I just die. And I'm like, well, this wasn't fun at all. So it's a cool idea, not what executed well.
Yeah, it's funny.
I fucking love this event.
Oh
my god! As a tank player, maybe I'm biased. Okay, I haven't played any Widow in the game mode. I play a little bit of Farah, and Farah is pretty fun, especially because you can fly around and stuff. But the way people just like hate this game mode, I don't get it. I think it's a fun little small event. Okay, it's not next gen PVE. It's not huge story mode. It's not trying to be. It's supposed to be like a small, unique little thing. Change things up a little bit. If you can't afford a battle pass, if you don't have these skins, you get to play with the new skins. They're cool. You get to play with some modified abilities. You get to just join a game, and I've done it. I'm trying to get this damn Junker Queen title, and it's taking me some time, but it's fun. I enjoy doing it, all right? And maybe that's because I'm playing tank, but it's not trying to be like the fucking next coming of like PvE story missions and win a game award for it. It's just like a modified FFA. Now, a problem might have been that the way they promoted it, and they were like, oh, this new Battle for Olympus game mode, 2 weeks only. It's like, maybe that was a bit heavy for like setting people's expectations of what this was. Hey, if you had a video with, I don't know, someone just being like, hey, we're doing this new little modified FFA, and like, here's the devs playing an hour of this game mode on Twitch or something, and it's like, oh, that's kind of chill. Yes, there are some glaring issues. Like, a lot of people complaining they can't play with a teammate. They can't play with their friends because it's FFA. That's a big issue, all right? It's not the perfect balance of characters. All right, I get that as well. I'm a tank player. Maybe the tanks are a little bit busted in that regard. But again, like what Custa said, they didn't... Yes, they're busted, all right? I don't get how Lucio players play this game mode. But anyway, well, you can boo people. And like, if you beat as Lucio, like you're actually like pretty bonkers. But so yeah, there are some like pretty, significant issues with the game mode overall. But for being a small event that like you launch Overwatch and you're like, hey, do I want to play competitive today? Do I want to play quick play today? And there's a new event and it's just like, hey, there's a new event where you can like earn, some new titles. If you're a new player to Overwatch, you get to earn a skin, all right? And if you've been playing fucking Overwatch 6 hours a day for the past 5 years, maybe you already have this mercy skin, all right? But if you're a new player to Overwatch and you play this for like 2 seasons, then yeah, fuck yeah, you get a new skin for like playing this game mode for a little while, and you get to try out the new skins, and you get to try out the PvE abilities. And the titles are hard to get as well. People are complaining just like, oh, it's gonna take me like fucking 50 hours to get all of these titles. I'm telling you, it's going to take like 75 hours. It's going to take me 75 hours to earn all these titles. Well, guess what? Hard to earn titles are good for the game. It's hard. It's good for the game to have titles and cosmetics and titles that are hard to obtain, because you feel rewarded when you get them. And you feel like when you wear it, when you equip it, and I join a ranked game mode, and this player goes like, holy shit, you got 300 kills as Junker Queen in that game mode. Wow, you are some kind of Junker Queen degenerate. Why the fuck did you do that? But that's something to like look towards. It's not just like, here's a random title. I got level 35 in Battle Pass Season 1. Very cool. No, that title is something you attained. That's something you put work towards. That's something you earned. And yeah, maybe you can't get all the titles because you're running out of time. Well, guess what? Don't be such an entitled bitch, okay? You can't have everything in this world. So sometimes you gotta make some decisions, okay? It's not supposed to be this event where you just like here's some titles for you, sir. Here's some fresh titles, and you can equip all of them, and they're all yours. It's like, no, make some decisions. Make some hard decisions about what title you want to pursue so that you feel strongly more attached to it. I think it's great. Look, maybe it's a classic WoW gamer in me that's just like, oh, I wish to grind aimlessly and just mindlessly this fucking FFA mode for 10 hours. I like it. So I think it's a great little mode. I think people expected it to be like this next level fucking PvE event, and it's clearly not. It's not supposed to be, but it's a fun little thing that makes Overwatch 2 feel fresh. You log onto the launcher, and there's something new going on, and something new the Overwatch devs put forward. There's PvE talents. Yeah, it might feel a bit clunky at times, but it feels refreshing. It feels like you're getting new content. So I fucking love the game mode because I'm a tank player, and I'll happily wear my narcissistic Sue's favorite child title moving forward.
I will agree with everything Johnny said, except that the game mode isn't fun. That's my only complaint with it.
Well, I mean, I'm just in awe of his passion, and I'm pretty confident that up until now, that is the longest anyone has spent discussing the Battle for Olympus in the Overwatch sphere. So I think there is the definitive rant on Battle for Olympus by Johnny Reinforce right there.
The Overwatch Reddit is such a fucking cesspool with just like 5 of the 6
browsing
posts.
Overwatch Reddit? Get out of there, Johnny. There's nothing good comes out of the Overwatch Reddit.
You went into the toilet and expected something other than shit in there. Like, what did you want, Johnny? You literally went to the bathroom, looked down the toilet bowl, and you were like, damn, there's shit in there. Like, of course there was, Johnny.
I will message the Overwatch devs myself and just like ask them like, what social media or what website do you like go for feedback, or like where do you go to read? And if they say the Battle.net forum, fine, I'll just browse the Battle.net forum from now on. If they say Twitter and like verified amount, if they say like a WhatsApp group, I will ask to be invited to that WhatsApp group, because I just want to live with like the developer glasses, see what they see, digest the feedback that they digest, so I can get like an understanding of like what they're going through. So yeah, maybe it isn't Reddit. Maybe if I reach out, they're like, oh, we never go to Reddit. But the fact that there are so many fucking bitches complaining on Overwatch Reddit about this game mode, and they're like, it's a disgrace. Do you realize how like demotivating that is? Do you realizing how frustrating that is? Someone who like walks into work every day, you go to campus and you're like, hey, I really want to work on this like happy game with like fun characters, and like people can identify with the characters, and like we build a happy story, and it's trying to be this nice place. And you're trying to get feedback from the community, and it's just like, this is a disgrace. This is one of the worst Overwatch events of all time. This is horrible. What are the devs thinking? Like, holy, like, I wouldn't want to work on the game. Like, I would just straight up not want to like work on that game, because it'd be so hard to get a positive feedback loop where you feel like you're doing rewarding work and you feel like you're making people happy in that regard. So yeah, maybe there's some fucking sanctity on the internet where like Overwatch devs go to read happy comments everywhere, but I haven't found that place. So if you know, just hit me up in the DMs. I don't know. I just think it's so frustrating that people are always so negative and they expect every event to be fucking game award winning, because it's not. It doesn't have to be. All right, it was a fun little event with the cool new skins, and you know, you get to try out some modified abilities. That's it. I think it was cool. You get to earn some titles if you're me. That's all it has to be.
I think you know, beautiful rant aside, and a middle finger to Overwatch Reddits and other various forums, I think you bring up an interesting point, which is that there is a lot of negativity, I think particularly around the monetization. And I think this leads nicely into just the conversation on monetization, how it's going to go forwards from now on, because the machine has started and it will only continue from this point on. You know, already people are upset about paywall heroes. We're going to have PVE. Who knows how that's going to be monetized? I'm sure however it's monetized, people will be unhappy. But there's definitely a very strong negative sentiment, I think, particularly around like skins in the shop and the inability to kind of get that many skins because they're so expensive. Kragie, how do you feel about the monetization? Like, and also the criticism of the monetization. Do you think it's fair? Like, are you happy with it? Or do you think people are, you know, right to express the grievances on Reddit that Johnny's referring to, or are they off their rocker?
Well, I think the elephant in the room is the $19 Overwatch skins that is a little bit of an issue in my opinion. But I'd like to talk about the Battle Pass. I think the Battle Pass is great. I think it has great rewards. But this season I have been playing on an account that doesn't have the Battle Pass unlocked. I'm pretty sure you gain more experience if you buy the premium Battle Pass, yes. Right? And it takes a long time to go through. I feel like if you actually grind it all the way through and you spend so many hours, I feel like you should at least be rewarded with another Battle Pass the next season. I think they should incentivize people to play that way. Instead of having people to grind it all the way through to then spend money on a new one that comes out next season. So I feel like there should be premium coins in the Battle Pass, so you can buy the next Battle Pass if you finish it.
Mm-hmm. I definitely don't disagree with the idea that there should 100% be premium coins in the Battle Pass. I think on the issue, because this is a frequent one about like, well, if you complete the Battle Pass, should you get the next one for free? I guess the counterpoint from the devs would be, that puts us in an awkward situation, because we're left with one of two choices. A, continue to give you a very good Battle Pass, and then people grind it, and we don't make money because they continue to have an infinite Battle Pass. Or B, we stuff the Battle Pass with a load of crap because we know you're going to grind it, and then all the good stuff, because like the Mythic skin is incredible value at the end of the Battle Pass, right? But then maybe they're now like, maybe we don't want to put the mythic skin in the battle pass because everyone grinds it and they get it forever. Like you buy it once, you grind forever. Maybe now
Is that a problem that they're grinding the game, right? Like if someone's playing enough to get 80 levels in the game, I feel like that should be like that should be their net goal, right? And I'm sure that most of the people they make money off of are people who spend $10 on it and then never finish it. Because I'd actually be interested to know what the numbers are of the number of people who buy the battle pass to the number of people who complete the battle pass. Because I would say it would be very low. I would say probably less than 30%, less than 20% maybe, because a lot of people, like that's how I play other games, right? Like obviously Overwatch is different because it's my job, but like other games, I buy battle passes left and right, never finish them just because like that's how most consumers are of like these games. So I've talked about the monetization model on this podcast before, and you know where I stand on it. I agree. I think if the prices went from $20 to $15, I think that is much more reasonable and people would buy it. I'm not talking about corporate greed. Corporate greed is just how it's going to run. That they're a publicly traded company. They're always going to be greedy. But I think realistically, they would sell more if it went down to 15 than 20. And I think that would be a net gain for them overall. But they have more data than we do. I agree that the battle pass is hard to finish. I think they should have rewards of the premium currency as well. I think those things would incentivize people to buy it and play the game. And for me, it's not even about the money. I think they just need to keep adding incentives for people to play the game because otherwise people will stop playing the game. And we're already seeing the decline, right? And it comes down to like, where do we stabilize and the game hits a good point? And if they keep messing up the meta and the monetization and people are just going to be perpetually mad, we're just waiting for a new game to come out that will eventually kill Overwatch.
Yeah, Johnny, do you agree with that sentiment?
So I got 2 points on this. The first one, when it comes to like premium tokens, whatever in the battle pass, I don't know how the math breaks down, and I'm not going to do math on stream. But wouldn't the big problem be that like imagine you got to like level 51 or whatever, and then you bought your way up to like a mythic skin or whatever, or you bought yourself to like premium currency, like. Wouldn't it then be kind of like the math would be that like it would just mess up like the revenue for Blizzard, where like you would have players buy like 10 levels in the battle pass to earn the cost like an entire next season battle pass.
Buying 10 levels is very expensive.
Well, you could just you could just inflate the price accordingly, right? If you're going to give them 10 coins, you can bump the cost of leveling that up by 10.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that in like a transparent way, but I guess that would be like if you were to reward people with premium currency, which in the battle pass, you'd have to figure out like how that would mathematically work with buying levels in the battle pass, and like are your player base just going to like game the system to like get the next season battle pass for a pretty cheap sum of money, compared to like buying it fresh, like the patch day when like the new season drops, like buying it that day. Like, are people going to just like? So I don't know. It's a difficult situation. I don't have an answer for you in that regard. I do think that like the people who play the game the most should be rewarded in that sense and feel like they're sort of like belonging to the game in such a way that like there's some recognition there that like, hey, you're a fan of this game, like you love Overwatch as a product and you're heavily invested in this, we're going to reward you in that sense, that like we recognize that you're a real one, and we're going to give you some sense of reward. There's no reward right now for like playing Overwatch and like being a fan of the game, and I think that is one of the issues where like you want your player of the game to feel some kind of like connectivity to the game. They want to feel some kind of like relatability to the game, and they want to be recognized. They want to be recognized for their time and effort. Goodbye, Custa.
He's like, recognized for my time and effort? Fuck out of here, I'm gone.
Yeah. Oh well. I'm Kragie now on the stream. Hello.
Yeah. What up?
I'm Kragie.
Oh, I'm Custa.
There we go.
There we go. He's back.
Oh,
you good?
So yeah, I'm just gonna continue after because I guess it's sort of, but yeah, I do think that is something that we'll need to strive towards, where like the player base feel like they're rewarded for the time and effort, and it's not always time. It's it's about talking about the game with like your friends, and it's about supporting the game publicly and like merchandise and like repping that stuff, like feeling like you belong to a game in that way. I think that's like really important to work towards. The other point I had was about the monetization of the game and monetization of the battle pass. So Overwatch 2 is in this very like tricky situation where when you have like these we have these models where it's free to play, but then you can, buy skins and you have like whales and stuff like that. The problem is that like most whales in like mobile games and stuff like that, they buy loot boxes. They buy it's going to a casino for them. They're investing money, and I've seen this in real time. Custa has as well, where people invest this money for like an opportunity or a chance to get like a legendary skin, or like they're buying the lottery ticket, right? They're not buying something outright. And so I think Overwatch is in this sort of like problematic revenue game where you don't really have whales in Overwatch. Like unless there's someone who's just like, I'm going to buy every single skin in the store, then yeah, maybe they're a whale. But you can buy the battle pass and like you can buy some levels and maybe a few skins, but like that's about it. So the way I'd like visualize this is that like the distribution of revenue from your source of players in like mobile games where you can just buy loot boxes, the top 1%, the top 2% of your player base that sends money, they are going to bring in so much fucking money to you because they're just pouring in money for these lottery tickets. Whereas with Overwatch, because there's a limited amount of items you can buy, it's more like dispersed among the ranks, where it's like we need as many people as possible to buy the battle pass versus like a few individuals just pouring tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands into the game.
I think this is where he's going with this.
I'm making the distinguish. I'm making the distinguish where like it's problematic to like reward your players with a free battle pass because most like a big source of your revenue is actually having the returning players purchase the battle pass, right? Whereas with gacha games can get away with rewarding regular players like that. So I don't know. I'm trying to paint a picture where like people buying the battle pass are actually like contributing massively to the revenue that Overwatch generates. That's sort of like where I think things land. So that's why I think it's difficult to reward people with free battle passes or free stuff, because Overwatch 2 doesn't have these whales that just like splurge massive amounts of money on the game. So you need your casual average player to buy the battle passes and buy a few skins now and then. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. And I think that like maybe it's a place where a more communication, if it's possible, would be great about like how the devs view it. Because if the devs are like, look, we don't want a whale model. We don't want a model where like basically most of you are being funded by a very small percentage of hardcore people just absolutely burning through their bank accounts. We want to create a system where we encourage as many people as we can to buy the battle pass, and that's why we're not giving you free battle passes, because we want to make almost like a more democratic system where more of you fund it rather than just one very small the billionaires funding it, as it were. But I think that's where we're kind of left in the dark, because I don't know what percentage of revenue Overwatch is making from its battle pass versus from its skins, versus from buying
no one
boosts.
knows. Yeah, we have no idea.
And obviously I don't expect them to tell us. I don't expect them to say, oh, SCP, by the way, we made this much. But it would be helpful to have their vision of like, okay, well, our vision is that we want people to buy the battle pass because we think that's like a fair model for everyone, right? Like that would, I think hopefully players would be a bit more understanding there.
I think another issue that they're facing is that because majority of the skins have been available for free in Overwatch 1, the skins don't feel prestigious.
Yeah.
As like other games do. And most people that had Overwatch 1 already have a ton of skins for a ton of different characters. So it's not like, for example, when Valorant first came out, like everybody needed to buy skins in order to get change the colors of their guns and whatnot, to get a new knife and all that kind of stuff, because a lot of Overwatch players already have that, and a lot of Overwatch players are used to skins. They've seen most of the skins that people use. Of course, some of the newer skins are way better in my opinion than the old ones, but I've also seen, for example, when the Reinhardt skin came out, I've seen a lot of Rein players buying that skin and running around with it. So, but I feel like the the whole like idea of having like a prestigious skin isn't really a thing in Overwatch like other games like CS:GO has, or let's just take Valorant for example, where you can buy a knife for like $19 or $20. I feel like a knife is more worth in Valorant than, for example, a Mercy skin is in Overwatch.
I think that's where mythic skins come in, right? Of like they're the prestigious skins, because especially we haven't really seen. Sorry, SBB, I don't want to cut your point. I'll be real quick. Is that these that mythic Genji skin in like 2 years is going to be way cooler than it is right now, because in 2 years it's going to be, were you around 2 years ago, bought the first battle pass, finished it, because it's the only way you can ever get that Genji skin. And we haven't really gotten to that point of exclusivity with these skins of like, hey, I have this one that you probably don't have if you weren't playing back then. But I agree with everything Kragie said of like, the problem is we have a wealth of skins that the new skins don't feel as impactful. And it's like Overwatch players need to change their mentality of everything that goes into the shop. You don't get every skin. You've got to kind of pick and choose. Like I only chose the Widowmaker skin from this thing because I thought the Widowmaker skin was really cool. But like there was a couple cool ones, but I'm not going to spend $20 on them.
Yeah, I mean, Kefri is in here like being like, that's a pay to lose skin because you can hear the snake sound so they can give away your flank. So good job, chump Custa, falling for the pay to lose.
Yeah,
but like,
right.
yeah,
this is why I'm no good at Widowmaker, because everyone can hear me.
That's why. Yeah, that's why. I mean, this is the problem with, I think, Overwatch, where it's like it's stuck in this, because it's such a unique way that's gone about it, where it's like we had this game that was box model, and then we've kind of sort of transferred everything over, but we're free to play and there's new stuff. Because like, imagine if they took away all, like there were no skins that you had to carry over from Overwatch 1, right? Imagine if like Overwatch 2 came and it was fresh. No, like everyone only had the default skins. Now every skin would be like really rare and it would be like, oh my god, because not everyone would be running around with like 10 legendary skins in their inventory they don't care about. Not to mention the fact that compared to Valorant, like this point has been made before, but you know, well, the knife is transferable whoever you play. And you can even pick up other people's weapon skins, right? Like, whereas in Overwatch, it's like you buy one skin that's for your character, you barely even see it half the time. You only see like maybe the handle, compared to like everybody else gets to see how cool the whole body of the skin looks, whole body for certain characters. But like you just see like a little bit, right? So it's like these little problems that Overwatch has that kind of hurt it in a little bit, and almost some areas where they've been fair and other areas where they're kind of using a few smoke and mirrors, which again is the problem. I think there's so much frustration because there is some of these smoke and mirrors where like I think about like that Bastion, or was it a Bastion skin that was like 5 coins or something? Like there was that bundle that you could buy for like really cheap.
Yeah,
but you can't buy
1 coin.
You can't, yeah, 1 coin. But you can't buy 1 coin. You got to buy 1,000 coins, right? So now a player has to buy. It's like these little tactics that are part of the industry now, where you know you kind of foot in the door to get someone in. Well, they got to buy 1,000 coins though. And then skins
you should have at least 20 coins. Like if you had played the game, you would get coins.
You get a small amount of coins, right?
Yeah.
You do, you do. Like, but I think the ideology behind these kind of tricks again is that, okay, well, this skin costs 10 coins, but you can only buy them in bundles of 1,000. The next skin costs like 1,000 and you know whatever, so you're left with some leftover coin, and you know it's kind of like ways to get you to the door, which I think people resent. Because it feels like they're being forced into getting this money, where previously in Overwatch 1, they're getting all these loot boxes and stuff for relatively free. So I understand people, you know, people just aren't happy with the new world we're living in, basically. The kind of the sneaky tactics that get employed to try and get you to pay for the game. And at this point, I want to shift over to the conversation about the PVE. Because
sorry, can I just have a few more
go ahead,
comments on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, because I think, you know, that was a problem as well when Diablo Immortal was released. Like, I think that was a new thing for Blizzard to have that kind of like monetization model for one of their games, where Diablo Immortal, it was using some of those tactics as well when it came to pricing items and pricing bundles and then pricing, you know, buying those items. I think we even had it in Overwatch, like Season 1 or something, where like if you wanted to buy a specific bundle, you had to like buy this like, you know, slightly larger pack of currency or whatever, just to be able to, like, there was definitely some kind of like tactic like that. I think implemented at first. I like what you brought up about like the fact that everyone already has these skins, because it's a unique problem now for Overwatch 2 and like the game industry, where, you know, I wonder what like the math would have been broken down to, whether you'd sell your skins for cheaper so that everyone can buy all skins that come with a new battle pass. So say like, do we want are we pricing our items to have the player base buy all of the Olympus skins, or are we pricing our items so that they can buy 1 or 2 cosmetics instead? And the fact that we had those so many years of the player base gets all the skins, they get everything, they're entitled to literally every cosmetic being released into the game, and portrait pictures and stuff like that, they're a bit different, but the fact that everyone already has so many skins, the only reasonable monetization model for Blizzard to pursue is where you put large, significant emphasis on 1 or 2 skins, which means a higher price point for skins, because people care less about having lots of skins. They care more about having a skin they really like, which leads to higher prices, which leads to customer dissatisfaction, because they don't want to pay $30 for a skin. But I think because everyone has so many skins already, I think that's like the only reasonable kind of like monetization model to pursue, really. So it's kind of like an unfortunate position we're in, because we've had free items or free cosmetics, and people have so much access to so many things already.
So I think some things that they might need to focus more on is different visual effects, something that we haven't had in old skins, but we're seeing in newer skins. I think that's where they're gonna have to put their focus in order to have people buy these new skins.
That's also like a dark path, though. I mean, I think audio is a good way as well, potentially. Like, and I remember Frogger complaining that the new Lucio skin doesn't have like new music, which he was very upset about. But like that does create. I know that does create like another problem though, which is like I've experienced this when playing like other MOBA games, for example, with like Dota, where you're like, especially when you're trying to learn. I tried to learn League of Legends a while back, and I'm like struggling already because I don't know all the characters. So I'm like, I see a character appear on the enemy team and I'm like, who the fuck is this guy again? Like, what does he play? Now they also have like a fucking legendary skin that they can equip that completely changes how they look. So like, I'm already like, wait, that's the other guy. Oh yeah, right. He's the other guy. He's just wearing a skin that I don't recognize, and even his abilities have different colors and stuff. So like, that might be that eventuality with Overwatch where like, does a new player know the difference that's Genji versus Genji in the mythic skin with like different sounds? Like, might that throw him off a little bit and contribute in a small way to the whole, this is an overwhelming game for a new player. Like, this is a lot to take in for a new player, because it's not just the character, but it's a different look on the character. So I do agree. I think it would be cool, but that's, I guess, some consideration that they have to pay in mind, which is like, we don't want to confuse people too much either. Okay, but I do want to move on, unless anyone else has anything to add on this regard, onto the PVE monetization. No? Okay, so yeah, I mean, we've got PVE coming up, well, we hope. My first question is just, what do you expect this year, right? Like, so 2023, like, how much PVE, what would the PVE look like? And then we'll get into talking about, like, how it would develop. I'm going to go to Custa first, who looks deepest in thought. Custa, like, what do you expect on the PVE end for 2023?
I think we'll probably get some form of full story of like one arc of like the PvE missions. The way that I'm expecting it to go for the PvE is that like we're just going to get multiple arcs that constantly come out, and that'll be like DLCs or like future missions and stuff like that. They've sort of shown us that like there's like Zenyatta. I think it'll be very surface level of like Overwatch coming back, which I think is cool, and I think that can drive the lore. For me, the only thing that matters for PvE is that it's replayable. That's more than anything else. Obviously, it needs to be fun, but there needs to be some sense of replayability. There are a lot of PvE games out there, especially 4-player co-op games, where there is a reason to play the same mission over and over and over again, and there are things that you can apply to the difficulty of the game that will make it replayable over and over and over. One of the biggest examples that I can use from personal experience is I think the missions need to be like Mythic Plus from World of Warcraft, where there is an infinitely scaling difficulty that will allow the, fresh players to just sort of like make it a little bit more difficult, but the top end players make it really difficult, right? And then they are rewarded in such with things that they can get. And if they can find a way to tap into that and accomplish that, I think they will have a very successful game. My big fear of it is that people will come, they will play the missions once, they will finish the storyline, and they will never play it again. Because what will happen is that's just not a healthy ecosystem. And what will happen eventually is people just stop coming back for the PVEs, and then the game's dead in the water.
Mm-hmm. Kragie, would you agree with that sentiment? Like, replayability is the king.
Yeah, 100%. I also think that's what they intend to do with the skill tree. They want people to constantly grind the skill tree, kind of like how you grind armor in WoW, in order to eventually beat the hardest difficulty. But yeah, I think it would be good to have like a whole setup of having to grind the PvE in order to beat it at the highest difficulty. I know it's kind of like, I also like one game that I also like to play a lot. Haven't played a lot recently is Left 4 Dead. I think that's a fun game that you are like these survivors versus the killers. I don't know if that's ever anything they're gonna do, but let's say they have like, if they plan on doing something the same, that you have to run through a map, but you have these special bosses that are stronger than the regular minions, that the people could play. That would also be interesting if they ever, do something with that. But that wouldn't be PvE, but that would also be pretty cool in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Twitch integration for that kind of stuff is cool as well. Like for Left 4 Dead and stuff like that, where you have like chat can like, imagine if chat could throw a fucking Roadhog at you, right? Like that'd be fun.
Be a lot of Roadhogs coming your way, Custa, knowing your love for Roadhog and your chat.
Let's just do this revolutionary game design thing. Quickly on Twitch integration.
Well, that's not revolutionary. That shit was in Left 4 Dead 2
yeah.
10 years ago. Yeah. Like,
oh, really? Left 4 Dead did that? You could send...
Left 4 Dead 2, yeah. They had that you could play that game mode with Twitch integration, and chat could send you like a bunch of enemies.
Oh, shit. Yeah, add that.
There you go then. Yeah, converted. I'm a bit more curious before we head to reinforces thoughts about Kragie. Like in your mind, is there like a template of like, this is the kind of experience I would want in the PvE, like maybe another game or something you've seen online?
Yeah, no, I think Custa was pretty spot on with the PvE. I'm mostly a competitive player. I don't play a lot of PvE stuff, but I am actually excited to play Overwatch PvE and go through the lore and see what they have. Already now, it might be a little bit weird, but like I've seen on, I think it's Rialto on like first point all the way to the right side where the river runs. They added a new part there.
Mm-hmm.
I assume it's for PvE, but like just stuff like that like gets me excited to start and explore more of the maps and see the new PvE characters that they have designed, because there was that. Oh, what was it called? There was that one. Was it on Rialto like a long time ago? Or was that on another map?
Oh, the Retribution.
Yeah. Like there's been some really good PvE missions in the past. So I think they're gonna do good. I think Blizzard is good at doing PvE stuff, so I'm excited for it.
Reinforce, you channeling something. I can see you kind of, conversing with the forefathers on this one. What are they telling you about the PvE?
I don't really care too much about like the rule set of PvE. I don't really care too much about like how it will play. I think the biggest thing about PvE for me, and I've just had this like realization recently, I think it's a way bigger deal than we like give it credit for. Because I think a lot of people, they look at something like the Junkenstein PvE event and they're like, oh, this will be PvE. Which is like, people talk about PvE like it's a complementary thing, like it's a secondary kind of thing that will be added, to Overwatch and something like a new player base can enjoy in the game. I think that PvE will be like the thing. I think that the developers like envision PvE to be like what can take Overwatch from like a niche multiplayer game, or niche is the wrong word, but like a multiplayer game where like you play the characters, you're in maps, and you compete for SR. And like that's kind of what you do in Overwatch. And then, you go play some custom games. Like Overwatch as a game, and maybe I'm not giving it enough credit because like how complex is like Apex, like how deep of a game is Apex, for example, but it's still successful. Like Fortnite, like at the end of the day, you're just fucking dropping out of a bus and then you go, so you don't need a game to be like this expansive fucking thing, right? But I think that I think Blizzard thinks that they have like lightning in a bottle with like the storytelling, with the characters, with the world, with everything that goes into this franchise. And I think the bottle in this case is just multiplayer and like what we're doing right now. I think there is so much potential with this franchise that we're not really exploring yet. So yes, I mean, Overwatch right now, as you said earlier, it's like it's an early access, you know? Like we're still playing, we got a few new maps, we got a few new heroes, but we're still just doing the same old thing, all right? Remember hearing about those news articles all the time where it's like, wow, the Overwatch developer team, they're hiring hundreds of people. They're expanding like all hell, okay? Is this a result of all those people getting hired? What we're doing right now, is that the result of all these people getting hired? I think a significant portion of the people working at Overwatch, they're working on PVE right now. They're working on franchising. They're working on like the brand management. They're working on like, how can we take what Overwatch is right now and how can we like enter the mainstream? Like, how can we really take what we have right now and build it out in such a way that like everyone will be talking about Overwatch? And this is mad copium, all right? I'm just gonna say it right now.
It's
this is
off
the heaviest of fucking
scales
copium.
right now.
You don't think
I've got
Custa, there is
gas
anything like this?
canisters of just opium right next to me on the desk, all right? But I think I genuinely think that like, given how little promotion there's been about Overwatch 2, how little emphasis there's been on marketing, in the grand scope of things, how few things have been added to the game experience compared to Overwatch 1, and that they're labeling us early access. We haven't launched. Like Overwatch 2 as a game in Overwatch's mind has not launched. Like we're early access. So the launch, and I think this will be PVE, will be like the big release for Overwatch 2. And that's where their resources are going to be emphasized. That will be the big thing. That is when we'll see like integrations with like, you know, real life people. Even the World of Warcraft Dragonflight announcement thing, right? They got like actual like famous people to participate in like promotional videos and stuff like that, right? They made like fucking sick trailers. That is, and I think when PvE is released, when Overwatch 2 will like truly like take on like its next chapter. So I'm under full fucking copium. But I think that like I don't think that like the Overwatch 2 developers, I don't think they're looking at multiplayer and it's like, this how do we improve matchmaking? That is the big thing that will take what we have right now in Overwatch 2 and make it like the next biggest thing. I think like the executive people on Overwatch 2, they're like, how can we take the franchise we have in Overwatch with the storytelling, with the universe, the characters and everything we have about that, the cinematics that people love, how can we take that and make it fucking Marvel? And I'm not talking like cinema movies, but I'm talking about like, how can we expand on this franchise and this universe to make it way more integrated into like pop culture and into like the mainstream? Because right now that's just my prediction. I think PvE will be a massive fucking deal and it will be expansive, it'll be replayable, and I think multiplayer will be like a side thing to the actual PvE thing. That is how I envision them planning out the game.
I mean, that's a very interesting take, and I can see Custa's facial reaction is just complete. He believes in the copium, but I mean, okay, go ahead, Custa. Give your like...
I don't want to. If you're right, Johnny, fucking A. I would love for the PvE to take Overwatch to the promised land, because I think we can all agree that the PvP isn't. So, you know. Yeah,
I mean, I would say because Johnny says, you know, it will be this. I think they my slight different wording would be they want it to be that. Now, obviously, whether like the
well, it'd be good. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm not saying you're an actual soothsayer. I think my only concern is because I actually agree with your sentiment. I've spoken to some of the executive, you know, Blizzard people. I obviously cannot tell you without getting sued the fuck out of what
you've done more than me. I've never.
But you know,
I guess I spoke to Aaron once, but
they are in it for the long haul, right? I don't think they're like, oh, we'll make
and the long haul is not season 6 of the battle
pass. No,
it's,
long haul is not,
you know,
well, let's keep getting a few people to buy the battle. Long haul is like this franchise, and I think as well, this like their long haul is this franchise goes huge, and I think we underestimate sometimes the impact that like a really popular, powerful franchise can have. I mean, we only have to look at like League of Legends and all the crap they do. But even that is not, even League of Legends, as amazing as Arcane as a Netflix show is, as many as like these little J-pop, K-pop music videos that they make are, even that I think Blizzard would look at that and say they haven't even hit the ceiling of what can be done. And like you think about a game like Elden Ring, which is like everyone is like critically acclaimed. It's like the best game ever. It's best game released in many, many years. That sold 15 million copies, right? Overwatch in like a week, Overwatch 2 had like 30 million players, right? So like we sometimes underestimate the scale, considering it's a global franchise, right? It's not just a franchise that gets played in the US or in Europe. China, Korea, like India.
Well,
like
not China anymore.
Well, we'll see about it. I remain skeptical that will fall through. I'm sure that they'll find, because it is a huge market.
When does the deal expire? In 2 days?
No, we got another 20 days until it expires.
20 days? All right.
I'm sure. There's no way, because it's a huge market. The point being, it's a huge market. There's no way they're not tapping into that market, whatever compromise they need to make, right? And I think they're going to look at that and they're going to say, we need to go big. We need to like you're right. I do think Johnny's right that they want like a gaming marvel, right? No, I'm not talking about, again, not talking movies, but like this shit needs to be everywhere. There needs to be on, like, we have so much random Lucios and Pachimaris that you can buy IRL, right? I think they want more of that. It's like, this needs to be on dolls. This needs to be on like hoodies and mouse pads and all this. We need everywhere.
Yeah.
But the question remains the delivery of it, right? That all predicates stuff on the delivery. And the one concern I have, because obviously, again, everyone is probably saying what Johnny said, which is like, well, if they hired all these people, if they took a break from developing Overwatch 1 for all this time, and it wasn't for some huge PvE, what the hell was it for, right? That's everyone's like, well, what was it all for? But we're not going to get like the whole thing, obviously, in 2023. It just starts the rollout. And we know this. We all know this. We're not going to get the whole thing. It's going to be some version of it. And I think that some version has to be very, very good, because like you can't drop this long-awaited sequel, the real Overwatch 2 PvE experience, and then the first iteration of it is whack or underwhelming, because our expectations are so high.
It can't be half-assed. Yeah,
our expectations are so high now, like especially amongst the Overwatch community. We waited so long, but even amongst the rest of the community, I'm dreading like the Donkey video. Kragie brought up Donkey, but I'm dreading the Donkey video where he plays Overwatch PvE for the first time and he's like, it's just Overwatch 1.7 now, like, he's just like, it's not even that good, like, it's just like you don't come back from that. I feel like if you just kind of dead in the water then at that point, if that's like the big hopium and then it doesn't manifest. So I only hope, fingers crossed, hopium, Johnny brought his oil tanker, I'm sniffing some of that. I really hope
I got
that
so much fucking hopium in the backyard, bro.
I really hope it hits, because it's just like, it can't afford to fail, is my sentiment. Kragie, I'm curious with your thoughts as well. Like, do you think they're going big picture, or do you think it's like still going to be PvP first?
Well, I definitely hope they go big picture. I think the whole Overwatch universe has big potential, especially also with what we saw with the League of Legends Arcane. I think Overwatch can do something the same like that. I think there's a lot of lore that people are interested in with Overwatch. But whether or not they're gonna follow through it and actually do it, I'm not sure. I'll be honest. I think I'm in the same boat as a lot of people, that there's been a lot of disappointment recently. So, but for sure, I mean, like I really hope that they do tap into this whole market of making a series. But we'll see. I mean, it's up to Blizzard at the end of the day.
For me,
quick point. I was gonna quickly say that if we want to judge the cultural impact of Overwatch, you only have to look at the fact #1 Pornhub search for video game characters was Diva by quite a long distance. So we're #1 in some field. We just need to tap that energy. Let's just tap the Rule 34 energy and crank it to the max.
Let's not tap that energy per se.
I mean, not specifically. I'm not saying they should branch out into adult content, but there's an interest amongst the people. The people want, more Overwatch.
People
characters.
know us.
Yes,
they're aware of us.
I think Overwatch's future is never going to be successful if we just remain a PvP game. Like, Overwatch will die eventually, because yes, we got this new Overwatch 2 release. Yes, it brought a lot of people back, but we're just waiting. Like, Valorant wasn't a good game to kill Overwatch because it's such a competitive game, but there will be another casual game that comes out that will eventually just fade Overwatch into non-existence, right? So I think Activision Blizzard realizes that they need to capitalize, that they have so much market share right now. And I think PvE is the direction they should go. Titan, the original game that Overwatch was supposed to be, the big MMO, it didn't get off the ground, and that's what created Overwatch. But there's something there, and I think everyone recognizes there is something there. And people forget, because we meme Activision Blizzard so hard because of the fumbles over the last 5 years. But this is a company that built the World of Warcraft universe that is one of the biggest franchises in the world, right? And they know how to do these things. They know how to run it. They know how to market it. They know how to do these kind of things. If they can do that with the Overwatch universe and they run with the bag, as Johnny said, they are hiring tons and tons of people. You have to assume that with this PvE launch, they're already talking about a TV show or a movie or something like that to then pair with that, because that's where the money is. They're not making... They're a $1 billion company. They're not making money on the $10 battle pass that they're buying off us. They need the Overwatch franchise to become a household thing where there is merch, there is all these types of things, and they are just doing that. If they can pull that off, that would be impressive. But as you said, the whole linchpin is that they need to go big or go home, and I have to hope that's why it's been delayed until 2023, is that they recognize when this lands, the PvE needs to be fun and people need to buy in off the bat, because if people play it, they don't enjoy it off the rip, or they just like, there's a bunch of bad reviews, people will not play it and it will not gain that traction. And it's hard to get people back in after that first impression.
And we're kind of working from a deficit already. Like the reputation, again, even now still is like lol, Overwatch 2, lol, 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 lol. You know, so we need to we need that impact to like shut people up essentially and I do think Overwatch 2's PvP has done a decent job of like, now people, I remember what Overwatch is again. Like I you know, again, just talking to people in real world where grass is being touched. Before, like a year ago, people, you know, if I said I make content for Overwatch, people were like, what game? But now I see a lot more people being like, yeah, okay, I know Overwatch. Yeah, I know Overwatch 2. Yeah, I know that game. Yeah, okay. So I think that impact has come, but now we need to go all the way. And there's a lot of more like content creators and big names who are still sticking with Overwatch 2, right? Which is testament to the appeal it has. But we just need to go all the way now. Moving on, it's just quick word as well. Like, do you guys have any sort of gut instinct on how that fits into a live service model? Like, how do you think they're gonna monetize it? I'll go to Johnny first. Like, do you have any instincts on like how do you think it's gonna fit in with the seasonal release model?
That's a good question. I don't really know. I could see it maybe. You know, Custa plays retail WoW. I play a lot of classic WoW, and so what you know, people thought that they would do was be that they like interchange the timelines, where like, you know, at some point they release classic content, then they release some retail content, and then classic content, and so like you get people like play back and forth and play both things. So maybe like you do something like that, where like currently now we have that every other battle pass, like a hero gets released and the map gets released, and like it's in that order, right? Like maybe it's some interchangeable PvE thing, where like it tries to fit in between the different PvP passes. Maybe they overwhelm you and they release a new like PvE mission and pass or whatever at the same time as a PvP pass. I really don't know. I have no idea. I don't know how they'll monetize it to begin with. So I don't have those questions for you. And I frankly don't have enough experience like playing other mission-like game like those. You know, maybe it's like Destiny or like something like that. I don't have enough experience in like how they monetize their game to tell you what's going to happen. I really don't know. I really have no idea how they're going to monetize the PvE aspect of it. But
I think...
Oh, go ahead, Custa, you go.
I think the PvE will take a massive precedent over the PvP. And I think Destiny 2 is a prime example. I think if they start having success with the PvE, they will stick to their roadmap. But I think everything will be prioritized towards the PvE if it is successful. And I think that is the direction that it's heading, is like, realistically, I don't think Blizzard cares about the PvP anywhere near as much as the PvE. I think that they recognize that the game is close to tapped as much as it can, especially with the PvP release. But I think there's going to be a lot more focus on PvE, and I think the monetization model will show that. But like, it'll be really interesting to see how they recover from that, because just like even looking at your chat, SVP, like people are talking about like the monetization model of like, oh, pay to win in the PvE game. It's like, probably will be, yeah. There'll probably be a way to pay to win in the PvE game, because it's a PvE game, and all of a sudden that opens up a lot of doors where you can allow pay to win. So I think it'll be interesting. And the biggest concern I have for it is that people are going to think of both products as the same thing, when I think they're actually going to be very individualized, and they're going to be very different teams running both of them.
I mean, you'll probably be able to, like, you know, if we have talent trees, you'll probably be able to like buy some kind of progression in the talent trees, or you know, if we're going to have, you know, maybe you can only access like some difficult levels a certain time amount per week or per day or whatever, so you can buy like extra attempts or like something like that. But yeah, I don't know. There's the point you said about PvP skins earlier, by the way, where it's like if you change like the visuals and stuff like that, that will be too much for new players to handle. In PvE, you don't have to worry about that. Like, you can have the fucking most rainbow-ass looking skin in the game, and no one's going to suffer the consequences of that. You're just going to get to show off in PvE, right? So that's another direction as well, where you could like really push outside of these, I can imagine, incredibly frustrating boundaries for the visual artist, where they're like, oh, the head hitbox has to be the same size on exactly every single skin. Where it's like, no, like, why don't we give Reinhardt some like huge fucking head or something? And, you know, there's some ability to push outside of those boundaries, which leads to more cooler PvE visuals and stuff like that. So maybe monetize that in a way.
Yeah, maybe PvE exclusive stuff. Who knows? I mean, Kragie,
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
What do you vision it, if you have any plans on it?
I think they should keep the PvE and the PvP separate. I think, like Custa said earlier, that maybe there's going to be like an Arc 1, Arc 2, Arc 3, and like Arc 1 might cost like $60, and then you get a couple of new characters unlocked, and a whole new skill tree for those characters, and different visuals. And then like Arc 2 comes out, you pay $60 for that, and then new characters again with new skill trees and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of like resets your progress, but like play like a whole new game almost, or whole new PvE. And then, yeah, I mean, if you can buy the skill tree, you can level up the skill tree by buying. I don't really see a problem with that. Since again, you're playing again, you're not playing against other players, so it's not like you've just spent more money on the game. That's where you're gonna win. You know, it's just, yeah, I definitely feel like there should be more pay to win doors opened in a PvE game.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, you're speaking from, I think, a competitive mindset where you're like, keep them separate, because presumably you want the PvP to still be something that stands on its own legs, right? Like, doesn't get influenced by the PvE. You can still get to play. Is that kind of fair to say?
Yeah.
Because I would say, though, thinking of how they've approached monetization so far, I would think their mindset might be the opposite. I don't know, but the current, like, the live service business model is all about getting you hooked and getting the claws into the player and then never letting them leave, right? And I think, like, what would the best way to do that would be, especially if you're potentially alternating content, like Johnny said, like maybe you're not, because you're not always going to be able to release PvE, and you're not always going to be able to release a new hero. Maybe they're going to find ways to like sync the battle pass, so that like maybe your $10 in the battle pass get you access to something in the PvE. Or maybe they try to be, again, this depends on their approach. Like, how do they want to approach it? Do they want to create the system where, like, we just want every player to buy the battle pass, basically, and like almost like a $10 a month subscription, like a Netflix service, so that way we know we have like a stable player base? And so maybe the battle pass is like, you have to buy the battle pass to get the majority of the levels. Maybe you get some free levels, but to the PvE this is, but to get like access to it, you have to pay the $10. And then maybe there's some additional stuff over the top, right? And in a way to kind of basically get the player to go, well, I paid $10 for the PvE, but like, because I want the PvE and I paid $10 for the battle pass, but I guess I could use that, now that I've got it, I could use it to play some more PvP too. Like, maybe I'll grind for this mythic skin, or vice versa, right? It's like, maybe you're like Kragie and you care about the PvP experience. But hey, this $10 battle pass that I bought gives me access to some PvE levels. Maybe I'll give them a shot, right? So I feel like the live service model is all about like encouraging players to spend more and more time, which some people are like, that's my dystopia, SCB. I hate the sounds of everything you're saying. I want to know the product, and I don't want to spend any more time than I have to. But my gut instinct is that they're going to try and like do it in a way that keeps them harmonious, because I do think that they themselves wouldn't want to kill the PvP over the PvE, right? Like, they've had things in the past where games have kind of killed or infringed upon other games. StarCraft 1 versus 2, a prominent example of just like, well, one ate the other. But That's my gut instinct. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
No, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. Like, I think they need, as much as I said they need to be separate, I think they need to feed off of each other a little bit. When I say that I think they need to be separate, is I don't think you need to like intertwine it like massively. Like in Destiny 2, the PvP is kind of intertwined in it, and it's kind of like the same game. But I think they will remain like a separate product for the thing. But they do need to feed off of each other. As you said, if you can have the battle pass that exists that both the PvE and the PvP want to buy, and then that leads into like, oh, maybe I will play a little bit of PvP, even though I only play PvE. Let's just go play a couple of games of quick play because we're bored, and it'll help us progress in something that we want to do in PvE or something. So they need to have that feedback loop and stuff like that. But for me as well, they just need to keep running with it. If they can end up creating like a Destiny 2 style of thing in the Overwatch universe, I think it would pop off. But I'm pretty sure that is like well end game for what Blizzard is trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to that, I guess my biggest worry when I have these like lofty goals for PvE, I don't know how they'll pull that off in like this current engine. Like, how do you take this current engine, I guess, and just like sort of like go beyond by like making like, you know, an inventory or like gear slots and like stuff like that have to be like something you equip in like the main menu or something. I have no idea how they're going to pull it off, so we'll see. Regarding the monetization, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of like PvE and PvP bundles, so they'll try to like get you to like extract value from you by thinking that you play both. So say like you're a big PvP player, and like here's a value bundle where you get some kind of like PvE thing with it as well. Or if you're a big PvE player, here's a value bundle for you where you're buying something PvP related as well. And I think those bundles will be a big hit. I'm actually quite surprised that there hasn't been some kind of like, given how like prevalent subscriptions are in like day-to-day life and like real life. Like I go to Amazon and I buy like sparkling water, and Amazon's like, save 5% by buying a subscription to sparkling water. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. But like, there's so many subscriptions in real life now, and we're still stuck in this like log in, do the like purchasing. Like there's no like renewing stream of revenue for any of these games besides like World of Warcraft. And people were like, well, subscription model will be like the death of World of Warcraft. Well, turns out it isn't, because people are way more fine with subscriptions now than they were like 5 years ago. So I'm a bit surprised in that regard that like Blizzard hasn't like tried to give the gamers like a good deal for like subscribing or being like loyal customers or something like that. So I don't know. That would just the fan base would explode if Overwatch was like the Overwatch subscription. Like,
yeah,
we'll take money from your credit card without asking you each month. Like,
you joke about it, but like think big picture as well. One thing we haven't even mentioned, and it is very pertinent for 2023, is the Microsoft acquisition, because it's probably actually finally, if it does go through, which it does seem likely, will come to fruition in 2023. And that opens up possibilities as well, because already people pointing out, like, you know, how you can get like coins through Microsoft and like Bing and stuff. Like you can get Bing rewards to get coins in the game. Maybe there's an. It's funny how you mentioned the World of Warcraft thing as well, because I feel like these like big companies and like their ethos kind of shift back and forth with time, right? Where it's like you said, wow, to start with, people like, oh, I have to pay a monthly subscription. That's so much money. I could just buy a new game in the 4 months I spent on WoW or whatever, right? And then we went to free to play, and there's like microtransactions, and now people are almost coming back where like big companies are all about subscription, right? It's all about get people into the door of the Game Pass. Like just get them subscribed to the Game Pass and keep them there, because that way you can, again, Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon, everyone, Apple TV, everyone wants you to subscribe to their subscription service because they know you're giving them money every month. Maybe it's not out of the question that they want Microsoft, like maybe Microsoft have had a word with them, maybe they themselves want this anyways, contribute somehow to the Game Pass, where it's like, okay, well, if you subscribe to the Overwatch subscription, you get the Battle Pass every season, and you get access to some PvE stuff. I mean,
yeah,
Kragie,
I
go ahead.
I've been subscribed to World of Warcraft for like many years now, and I throw money at away every month because I have like a month-to-month subscription, which gives like you the worst deal. It's just naturally more expensive versus like buying 12 months at a time. But like that's like such a good monetization model for Blizzard, where it's like, hey, if you subscribe for 12 months to World of Warcraft, we'll give you a mount. And some people look like, I need this fucking mount. I need to subscribe 12 months. I will pay over $100 for this to get this like $100 right now to get this mount right now. But Overwatch doesn't have anything like that. So it's just a bit fascinating to me.
The reason that is so lucrative as well is because you convince people that they want it anyway, right? You're like, oh, you're gonna play for a year anyway, right? Like you're gonna keep playing WoW. So I'll play. It's a good deal for you.
You think about that. You do this as well, Custa, where you think like, yeah, I'll probably play World of Warcraft for the next 12 months. Like I don't see myself quitting within the next 6 months at least. But
then you do quit, and they got 6 months of your money, right? And that's what they need to do. They need to bait people into thinking that they're getting a good deal by giving them.
Overwatch needs to be more predatory.
Things. Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Well, here's where
as if we didn't get enough shill comments. As if we didn't get enough shill comments. You just straight up. I mean, I'm curious, Kragie. Do you think the Microsoft? Yeah, we gotta clarify. Joking. We're not. This isn't a defense of the model either. When we say, oh, they're gonna get you in. It's not us saying they're gonna defend the model. It's just speculating on what could work. It's not like we have any power to influence them. But Kragie, do you think the Microsoft acquisition is gonna play a factor at all of what we're gonna see in the coming year?
I think if we're gonna see a difference, it's gonna be more with other corporations. Like we saw a little bit with the Tracer skin in McDonald's, but it was only Australian McDonald's, I believe.
Yeah. With the worst Tracer skin.
I've seen a lot of I drink a few Monster Energies here and there. I recently saw Apex Legends on them. I feel like they might start doing more of that, expanding out to stuff like that. But other than that, I don't think we're gonna see a big difference.
It's fair. I mean, I can see there's a channel in my Discord, by the way, because I know you guys drop comments in the chat, but I don't get to see them because it flies by. So there's a channel in my Discord specifically for group up questions, and an interesting one that someone's already put in, which is do you think there's a danger that the PvE will cannibalize the PvP, low queue times or high queue times, low player population, and just people losing interest maybe? Do you think there's a danger of that? I'll go to Kragie again because I feel like we haven't heard from you too much recently.
I think there's a difference between PvE and PvP players. It might make the queue time slower, and they might have to do a little bit of adjustment on how they do matchmaking, so queues won't be too big of a problem. But I think the majority of the people who's going to be playing PvE for a long period of time aren't the same type of people that play PvP for a long period of time.
It's fair. Johnny, you think there's a danger of cannibalizing?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. And I also think that it's a bit of and even though, sure, if you're a fan of Overwatch, and I think there's a lot of us who are just fans of Overwatch in general, we go and play the Junkenstein missions or whatever, And so I think there'll be some FOMO from the player base and understanding from the player base if that happens, that when PvE is released, the quality of the queues, there were longer queues and the quality of play, it'll probably be worse in PvP. But I don't think that PvP player will go out of their way to complain at Blizzard because so many people are playing the PvE game mode that week when it's released, for example. Because I think that player would just be well, of course, all the players that want to play PvE, and maybe they'll even be well, everyone's playing PvE, so I must go the PvE now as well, because I'm missing out on them doing that. So I don't really think that there might be some consequences because of that when missions and stuff are released, but I don't think that's something Blizzard will be blamed for, and I don't think it's something they should be blamed for. I think that's just kind of how it goes. But I don't think that PvP will die by any means. So I think I think it'll be fine.
Custa?
Yeah, I think it'll cannibalize it, but it'll also be additive, if that makes sense. So some of it will take from it, but if PvE is successful, it will bring more people to the PvP, and vice versa. I think as I said, this upcoming Overwatch 2 stuff, we already know what we've got for PvP. This is what we got. If you're expecting anything with the Overwatch 2 full release of the PvE to change anything for the PvP, you're out of your mind, right? Like, they are completely different things. So the best hope that you can have is that the PvE is successful, and then that draws more attention to the PvP, which then gives PvP more success, and then that helps the game overall. So hopefully it doesn't affect it too bad, because you've seen other games, they have successful PvE, and what that does is like people realize how unfun the PvP is in that, right? And then people like don't want to play it. So that could be an issue, but as I've said earlier, I think the overall longevity of Overwatch is very dependent on how successful PvE is.
I think as well, they probably look at a company like Riot, when I think League of Legends as well, where it's like they have League of Legends, they have like various modes in it, they have TFT, and they're all meant to like flow into each other, right? They're all meant to be like, well, and again, because I think the Overwatch universe is probably one of the best franchises in sort of gaming. Like, it's one of the most interesting. I think it's more interesting than League of Legends. Like obviously I'm biased, but I think it's more interesting than League of Legends world. So it would make sense to be like, I'm invested now. Like, I really like my Tracer card game character, and I want that to contribute to how I play Overwatch in real, like the actual game. And then the PvEs, she's my favorite, I love her story or whatever. So I think again it's all about that like big picture, let's get you involved in the franchise so that you kind of feel a loyalty to the franchise. Yeah, which brings me to the concluding sections, because I know you guys have given me a lot of your time and I'm very appreciative of it. So let's just go through some quick fire questions now. And we'll just run through. So we'll start with, I'm going to head this to Kragie, because we haven't really talked about this for a while, but do you want to see any competitive changes, considering that we've seen the 5k SR cap be gone? Is there anything else you want to see change? The rank system, DK, the ELO system, like should MMR be public? Any changes?
Yeah, so I feel like your rank needs to adjust visually every time you win and lose a game in high rank, because high rank players reaches GM1 very quickly, and right after then it feels like progress completely stops. Every time I'm done with my placement again, it just shows top 500, and that's like over and over and over again. So there's no like sense of reward. It would be nice if maybe it showed like, if like your rank would like adjust a lot, like in top 500 after your 7 placements, and it would show the new rank that you got. So maybe like top 23 or something like that, but it's just constantly top 500. More aggressive balance changes. So the meta changes. I can finally play new characters. Because like we talked about earlier, high rank players most of the time is just going to play what is the most optimal thing. And that character in DPS has been Sojourn ever since Overwatch 2 came out. So it'd be nice to play new characters and also to play against different characters. We've seen quite a big change in the tank role, but I feel like which brings me to another point. I feel like tank is very oppressive. Even when I play tank myself, I feel like it's the star of the show. And I don't have a problem that something is the star of the show, but it becomes a problem if it's the star of the show for months and months on end. So that's also why I think they need to do balance changes to change up the meta, and Blizzard needs to force metas by doing that. So and also another thing, I want the game to feel more interactive and less just, oh, I picked this person, now I'm dead immediately, and there's like nothing I can do, right? Like if I play like a certain character, if I play against Roadhog, I get one shot. If I play against a Sojourn and I'm not playing Sojourn myself, I just get one shot, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Agree with all that.
Yeah,
I agree with all that.
Okay.
For the rank system, I think they need to go to an Apex model of once you get to GM1 and then you break GM1, there should be something above that. They call it Apex Predator in Apex, for anyone that isn't aware. I don't know if they still do this. I haven't watched it recently in the last year, but then you are essentially that rank, and then you have just a number. You have a flat number of like, this is what your SR is. This is what we consider your number to be. And then you can infinitely raise that. And then I think they have a top like 500s thing on top of that number, where you are then the top 500 of those like exclusive things. You still have that SR number that's going up and down, but you have a number that is essentially just like top 500 of Overwatch. They do that and I think it should infinitely scale, because it's not really going to change the way the matchmaker is affecting you anyway. If you're a great player, you're the rank 1 player, you're going to get shit teammates on your team anyway. And then it infinitely scales. And what that does, it actually creates a never-ending cycle that incentivizes the top-end people who are going for rank 1, like Kragie, right? All of a sudden, he can be the first guy to ever break 6K SR, right? In a season, it infinitely scales. I try really hard. I do it. We pushed as hard as we could. And then we were the first ever people to break 6K SR. That's an achievement. That's something to play for, even once you are rank 1. And that avoids the situation that we're having with ranked right now, where it's like people get to rank 1 at like, whatever rank they think they are, and then they just camp it because there's no reason to play again, right? So then they just do it with a different account and stuff like that.
Do you think Sorry.
There you go. No.
Do you think the unlimited scaling kind of promotes the people who play the game the most? They get the highest ranked?
Well, no, it'll be exactly like it usually is, where you're going to lose a lot for losing, right? Like,
because the way no one got to 5,000 before, because like you obviously got less for a win and you were punished more for a loss, right?
But why is that a problem if you're just going to keep going up and up and up and up and up? Because it lets top 1% players have like a 60% win rate, probably, usually, like if you're a rank 1.
So I think the issue that there's going to be an issue with that. So the reason for why it works in Apex Legends is because Apex Legends, in my opinion, matchmaking sucks a lot. When you get high rank, once you hit diamond, then you go against rank 1, 2, and 3 stacking, and there's no way you as a solo queue who gets 2 other solo queues on your team is going to beat that stack. So it brings up another problem with like how do you play someone who's like 8K SR, right? Are they ever going to go against like a regular 4K SR player, or what? Like, because Overwatch's matchmaking on high rank is way more fair than Apex Legends. Of course, it's a completely different game, right? You need 100 people in Apex Legends, but a lot of Apex Legends lobbies are just stomped by the Predator stacks. But I do agree that there should be some incentive to like constantly keep playing on one account, preferably. Because like you said, like most of the time you have a person that has high MMR from last season, plays like 60 games and is rank 1, and he just chills there for like the majority of the season. So yeah, there definitely should be some kind of incentive to like constantly keep playing and like constantly reach for higher. Yeah, they just need a bit of matchmaking for that.
Go on.
I just want to say, but like, I definitely haven't, like, that idea isn't fleshed out to the thing for the reasons that you said. But like right now, it's really fucking bad. Like, I'm not even like pushing for rank 1 and having the issues where it's like my border from Overwatch 1 is what is influencing whether or not I'm rank 1 or not. But like, I'm like, 200, 300, and I finished my 7 wins, and it's like, congratulations, you're still top 500. And then my number just doesn't do anything. And I'm like, so I'm not seeing my number go up and down. And the other thing that needs to happen, please, for the love of God, even if it's a toggleable thing, let us show our rank in the bottom left portrait so that people can tell you're playing ranked, can see what rank you are. You can see it incentivizes you to play because you can see your little rank down there. And then if you don't want to see it, toggle it off. Like,
yep, I agree.
Yeah, I don't know if this whole like win 7 matches thing or like lose 20 games thing, I don't know if it was a net positive for treating what's it called when like people are scared of playing ranked because they're scared of losing. Comp anxiety. I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't have the data. I don't have the access to know whether this new system was like good for the amount of people who participate in playing ranked because they're less scared of having their number being altered like that. But from our position as like high-end competitive top 1% people, I'm kind of surprised we didn't really talk about the ranked like this episode. I guess you do every fucking episode, but like it's like really bad. It's so demotivating. People aren't incentivized to like grind the game. They aren't incentivized to like compete with other people on the top 500 leaderboard. I think I just don't like it. I think we should just revert back to the old system. Unless it was so massively beneficial for comp anxiety and like helping people participating in ranked, then yeah, sure. Like I'll buy it. I'll buy it. Okay, the system worked out for you guys, and it's a little bit punishing for us 1%. We can work on solutions to let's at least make the 1% have like something to work out. Let's leave the 7 wins thing. But like right now, it's a mess, and I think it heavily disincentivizes streamers. It disincentivizes professional people to repeatedly play the game, and they'll just go compete in other games because it's not fun right now in ranked. And I'm sorry, I hate to be this negative, but like I don't see a lot of like positives with it personally.
No, and I agree with you. The only reason I didn't bring it up in a specific section is because we've just been ranting about it. It feels like every week since Overwatch 2 launch, where it just feels like the matchmaking is just really bad. And I for fear of being accused of only talking about like the top 1% in streamers and stuff, I feel like the sentiment, it's really hard to say what the community feels. Only like Blizzard will know better than us, but like it feels like I hear the sentiment all the time from my community as well, where they're always like, yeah, it's bad in Diamond too, SCB, it's bad in Plat as well. It's bad, like there's I think just it's only seeming to get more scuffed because of this whole like Diamond Challenger, Master Challenger thing, like which I think is a good idea. Like it's a good idea to have titles specifically tied to rank. But now I just get people coming in, they're like, SCB, I'm gold, and I keep getting put in lobbies with like Diamond Challengers or whatever, right? Like what's going on? And of course, you would say, well, they might have reached Diamond in a different role. But it's still, I think, this very odd feeling for someone where the game tells you that you're being matched off your MMR. You don't know what that MMR is. Your icon is still showing you a different... Like, your icon is a lie, essentially. Whatever it shows you is a lie, potentially. It could be honest, but it could be a lie, which, who knows? Like, net positive is that it's a lie. You're getting put in lobbies that could be way higher than what you're supposed to be, could be way lower than where you currently are. You don't really know, and just forced to sit there and be like, oh, they've got a Diamond Challenger, but my team is all gold or whatever, right? And that whole mystery of it, I think, is just very frustrating for players. Not to mention, I felt this too, where it's like, you're getting put in, let's say, a lobby that's 1,000 SR higher than where you currently are, but you're going 50-50, and so you're losing a lot of games, and so your rank placements are very infrequent, and you're not catching up to, let's say, where you should be, quote-unquote, according to the MMR, fast enough, because you've already been dropped from the previous season, right? Like, you were dropped at the end of last season, dropped down quite a lot. You need many, many wins to get back. You don't have the time to play that many games. A lot of players who are in the medal ranks, they don't have the time to play that many games to catch up. So I do think there's a lot of frustrations about it. I'm just kind of tired of ranting about it at this point. Like, I don't know. Like,
and I have a lot of respect for the people who worked on the ranked system, and I give them a lot of the benefit of the doubt. I hate to be this negative about it because I feel like I'm not in a position where I actually have like the knowledge to make these decisions. Of course, I don't consider myself an expert on making appealing matchmaking system. So I acknowledge like all these upfront about that. I can't. You couldn't ask me to design like a way better matchmaking system. To me, from my position of not having this knowledge, I was personally more comfortable in a more straightforward ranked system where you can see everyone's values, you gain SR if you win, you lose SR if you lose, and it's straightforward. Whereas now you're in this position where they hide things and you have to like give the game the benefit of the doubt, but then also like the game throws you off with visuals where it's like, you know, whether it's like you're getting a gold or versus grandmaster or like something like these, that like visual representations that aren't like actually true because there's a hidden SR. Like the system is so complicated in its current form that it makes it difficult for me as a player to give the system like the benefit of the doubt and trust in the actual system that is in place, which makes me less happy and incentivized to participate in the ranked experience. I don't know. That's about as formally and like sophisticated I can give my answer. But I'm trying to be really like kind and not just like, oh, this is trash, this is fucking horrible, I don't fucking understand this. Like I'm trying to genuinely be like present myself as someone who doesn't have the greatest idea, but I'm trying to be fair and have a lot of respect and benefit of the doubt to the developers.
Kragie, do you feel like there's I know you mentioned that at least at top 100 they should see their number change, but like, do you just think old system was better? Like some other solution is better?
Yeah. I agree with Reinforce on that. We don't have the data on the majority of people. But I definitely think that if you ask any top 500 player, I think majority of them would want like something to progress past GM1. So I kind of like the idea that Custa brought up, where as like in Apex Legends, like once you reach this rank, then like this whole new thing starts with like top 500, and like you just go like as far as possible. Like they could keep what they have right now, and then once you reach GM1, if you can go slightly above GM1, then you start having these visualized numbers that people can start competing about in the top. So they don't really change anything for the majority of people, because yeah, like Reinforce said, we don't really have the numbers on comp anxiety, whether or not this has helped them out or not.
Yeah,
only Blizzard really has that.
Yeah, because like I think you can just like, this is literally an issue for the top 1%. This isn't something that needs to affect the entire game. Like they can build a system at the top end that would be good. And this isn't just being like, oh, they should care about us. This is important for the game's health overall, especially viewership. I think if that existed in the game right now in Overwatch Ranked, Twitch viewers would go up. Like people would be seeing the game, people would be following along. Like you see that for so many other games, is there is incentive for fans to watch these top end streamers. There's a lot more content being made about it. It just makes it way more interesting. And I think there is, theoretical benefits of implementing a system like this in terms of just like marketing, making it competitive and all that kind of stuff. So I hope they do. Like I think the top 500 is a great idea, and I think it worked well in Overwatch 1. I just think that they baked in this new rank system without thinking about how it would affect top 500.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, hard to comment on the vast end without the data. Okay, this was meant to be quick fire, but we stumbled onto an important topip. So
yeah, I think it was important. I'm sorry.
No, it was. I think it was important to dwell on it and kind of get our thoughts on it. A word on toxicity. Do you feel like it's been better or worse in Overwatch 2? Is there anything more that can be done? Like, obviously, this is another very anecdotal situation.
Yeah,
you can't fix the internet. Like it's just like people who say like Overwatch is the most toxic video game out there, like go play other video games. Like there is like, it just exists. There is toxicity everywhere. I think Overwatch is trying its best to combat it. But I think it's always going to exist as long as there's the internet. It's just, there's always going to be some bad actors in the community. There's always just going to be shitty people ruining everyone's things. I think it's impossible to expect Blizzard to just like fix it all. There's always going to be toxicity because there's just shitty people in the world.
I mean, that's fair. Do you guys feel equally the same, Kragie and Reinforce?
Yeah, I agree with him on that. I mean, most of the people that I play with and against are the same people from Overwatch 1 and people that have been in the community for a long time. So you kind of like yeah, I don't really have a good opinion on that because I have a very narrowed mindset on it, or like anecdotal evidence on it. Like, yeah, it's the same for me because it's the same players I play with and against.
Yeah, I feel like a bully because I'm like, oh, it's fine. There's not a lot of toxicity, and then Mercy mains are like, for God's sake, please stop complaining about the hero I play all the time. Whereas like, yeah, I mean, look, there, I from my position, I don't experience a lot of toxicity. I play this fucking FFA game mode, and I have people saying like, oh, hey, it's reinforced, and that's a nice feeling for me. But I think it's a more relevant question to ask people of like marginalized genders who, don't dare speaking up in voice chat and have to deal with a lot more harassment than I have to do in my current position. So I think those are the people who should appropriately answer that question, whether toxicity is better in Overwatch 2 or Overwatch 1, because the truth is that I genuinely don't have to deal with that, but I still acknowledge that is a big problem for a lot of players who try to enjoy the game.
100%. I think anecdotally as well, the more popular a game gets, I feel like the more scummery sometimes appears out of the woodworks, because I think like your casual FPS player hopping in and out between games tends to be a little bit of a bitch. So like again, anecdotally, like YouTube comments and TikTok comments are horrible. Like YouTube comments have gotten worse. TikTok is already like an awful platform. I feel like most of the social medias of Overwatch have gotten a bit worse. But it's hard to like measure. Again, Blizzard will have like these are the number of people who are being reported and punished, etc., etc. These kind of numbers we don't know. But again, I think this is another area where people's experience is key and what people from different backgrounds are experiencing. Okay, final quickfire question. PvP with skill trees. Custa, I'm going to direct this to you because you actually mentioned something about
this. Spicy.
Hell no. I think fun arcade mode that they could add when PvE is out with skill trees, that kind of stuff. But it sounds fun in theory, and then you play it and you're like, hey, maybe that Reinhardt that when he shattered also shot 19 fireballs out of his ass and then like one shot everyone around him. It's not as fun when you actually get to play it. But, you know, like there are great workshop modes that exist like that where like characters become overpowered and they run around. Like someone will enjoy it. It'll be a fun arcade mode. It should never be a serious thing they try and implement, in my opinion.
That's fair. And that reminds me, hopefully we'll get the workshop back soon because I think that did add a lot to the Overwatch community overall. Okay, I'm just going to get your final concluding thoughts, guys. I got a lot of your time, so thank you so much for it. Your one major thing that you want to see for Blizzard and Overwatch in 2023, I'll go with Reinforce first. What's like signing off your biggest hope for 2023? Like, what are you like, give me this and I'll be happy?
Ooh, I could go a lot of different directions in this. So just a bit on the last questions about the talent trees. I know it was quickfire, but I was surprised that you weren't going to ask about the hero ban system in ranked. That's a quickfire question.
That's a whole. I'm actually going to get a whole separate debate for that because I know the hero ban.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Like, there's going to be a whole separate podcast on that. Don't worry.
Yeah, because you know, just background here. Me and Custa, whenever we've been on Plat Chat together and brought it up, we've been like, hell no. But I'm secretly like starting to, you know, open my incognito browser. I'm opening my incognito browser and I type in.
In case like, Geoff Goodman's tracking your data and like, ooh.
No, I just don't want it to be on like my record, my browser history. I don't want it to be like, oh, Johnny looks up hero ban debates and like whether, you know, pros and con arguments. It's like, I'm a bit ashamed of it currently, but I'm starting to at least consider it. Yeah, I don't know. So maybe I'm shifting my mindset a little bit there. That'll be interesting though. So you know, one big thing for 2023, I could just come out the gates and just be like, add a hero ban system, but I'm not going to do that because I don't truly know whether I believe it'll be good or bad for the game yet. We've already talked enough about the PVE thing, so you know that is obviously going to be the one thing that I'm looking forward to the most, the PVE system. I think it'll probably be released actually late. They've never said like a quarter. I wouldn't be surprised if it launches around like BlizzCon, which they have announced is confirmed in person this year. Diablo 4 is released in June. I doubt that Blizzard would just be like, oh, let's release Overwatch PVE right whereas we release Diablo 4. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So I think we're in for a long year of multiplayer, of battle passes and ranked until like the fourth quarter of this year. And I think we're in for one hell of a fucking bang come BlizzCon with like big announcements and a big return to BlizzCon, you know, whether we're in an arena or something, and the crowd will be like, holy shit. So yeah, I'll go PvE. I'll go as a big thing that, you know, Custa, he's going to sigh and, you know, roll his eyes again. I think I'm betting on a Netflix show this year. I'm betting on the announcement.
You think they announcement?
No, announcement of a Netflix show this year. That's where I'm going. So PvE, because I think that summarizes my hope for PvE in that they like take PvE and build upon it. So I think in conjunction with PvE being released and an emphasis on cinematics and storytelling, I think they'll announce a Netflix show.
I love the optimism. The whole tanker just keeps filling up deeper and deeper for Johnny over there. Custa, go ahead. I feel like you want to respond anyway.
Live action, like Soldier 76.
No, not live action.
No, not live action,
Take
please.
live action out of your mouth again.
Dude,
Don't you dare say
Come on,
live
man.
action.
No,
Harrison
dude, live
Ford,
action.
Soldier
You had me
76.
in the first half. You had
Come
me in
on,
the
man.
Yeah,
first
you
half.
had us in the first
fuck
half, dude. Live action,
come on.
everything sucks.
What's that Chess Gambit show called or whatever?
Queen's no,
Queen's
please,
Gambit?
no.
Queen's
Also,
Gambit.
what is that
Overwatch and
based
chess are
off?
very
What is that
different
based off? Chess is a real game. How is that the live action version of chess? Chess is real.
No, hold on. Okay, the Queen's Gambit, the main character, right?
Yeah.
What's her
You
called?
want her to be Tracer.
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, she's Tracer. You got Harrison Ford, the Soldier
No.
76.
Who's
No!
playing Winston? Who's
Harrison
playing
Ford
Winston,
is like
Johnny?
100. The guy can't get out of bed for an Indiana Jones movie. He's not gonna come out running. His soldier's biggest thing is that he sprints. I don't think Harrison Ford can move around without a wheelchair anymore.
They made that movie called Cats, you know, where like they made
Oh,
like
dude.
And that shit was
You're
awful.
asking
Johnny,
for Overwatch
we
Cats.
need a mute Johnny.
You're
We need
asking
a-
for
we need a
Overwatch
mute
Cats.
Johnny.
Like,
You're telling me you
Corden,
want to
whatever,
see
he
James
whispers. I'm
Corden
just saying.
fuck a lamppost or something? What do you? Oh, dude. There's no way you want Overwatch
I'm
Cats.
gonna go before Johnny says words anymore. I agree that I think that's a good shout from Johnny that BlizzCon 2023 announces a Netflix show of Overwatch, and I think that would play into the excitement that is coming for the PvE Overwatch, which should at that point, if we're assuming it's coming out, Overwatch 2 is coming out late 2023, then that would make sense of like they would have already teased a lot of the PvE. For me, the only thing that I want is that when Overwatch 2 fully releases, they deliver on the promises that they did in 2019 BlizzCon when they last did it, when they showed that cinematic and they hyped everyone up and they got everyone excited. Like, we've been chasing that dream for the last 4 years. So that's where I hope we can get back to that and Overwatch can get back to what it should be.
Some sanity. Like, this is such a wild ride because Johnny's like giving reasonable suggestions and then he just goes into the fucking Twilight
fucking
Zone
went off the
for
grid. Johnny
2
does
minutes
that.
and then we go back to sanity. Craggy, which side are you going to pick? Chaotic evil or lawful good? What do you want to see for your big thing for 2023?
The big thing that I want to see is them include the community more, like they did with the stream of them making the map. I feel like whenever they're going to rework characters, they are planning on doing some reworks to Roadhog, I assume, at least.
Yeah.
I feel like they need to bring up maybe like 3 or 5 different characters and have the community vote on which characters that they want to get reworked. And of course having workshop come out as soon as possible so the community can start making some new game modes. I think there's some hidden gems in the community, but they have to shift through a lot of shit in order to find those hidden gems. But I think if they want to go through the effort to find those, I think it'll help the game out a lot.
Yeah, I'd like to see potentially creator patch as well. Maybe a Kragie DPS balance patch. I would like to see that.
That will be good. That will be very good.
I would have said
Very
reinforced
fair.
balance patch, but now I question everything. I question inviting him on the podcast after Overwatch Cats was suggested as a potential solution for the future.
Bro, for that Easter egg April 1st patch or whatever, I was the main guy behind Reaper Can Fly. I'm just telling you, I made a difference.
You're the worst.
Yeah, you're just making this worse, dude. Everything you're saying is just making this worse. Well, regardless, I think my big hope. I mean, obviously, we all want the PvE to go out with a bang. So fuck it, hero bands, let's go. 2023 hero bands.
Yeah, commit.
The year of the hero bands, let's go. Make Overwatch sane. At least let us ban Sojourn. Fuck out of here when the balance is bad. Okay. Well, very much. Thank you so much, guys. I'm very, very appreciative of your time. It has been a blast talking to you, and I hope we'll connect again. Chat, and those of you listening on YouTube and Spotify services and stuff like that, please go check these guys out. Their links will be in the description, so please go show them some love. Give them subs and money and body parts that they need for surgery, whatever they might need. Give it to them. And yes, I hope I'll catch you guys very, very soon. Thank you very much, guys. Signing off. Peace out.
It was fun.
Hey,
Bye.